Well, this is it. The day the bros gotta split up. Beautiful day, ruined by some serious bawling that's drawing everyone's eyes. Kaix couldn't figure out why Leo was blubbering so hard. It's just a few years apart, right? Oscar, being the sensitive guy he is, teared up too and begged the kid to write them letters all the time. The Rosebell Empire's prince hugged Leo, trying his best to calm him down. Romeo hated these depressing moments. Rio just stared at his friends, but he couldn't stop the waterworks. Thing is, Rio knew the future, and he knew he probably wouldn't ever see his buddies again. When he was 8, the crown prince nearly drowned, and that's when his past life memories came flooding back. In his past life, the main character was terminally ill and spent most of her time in the hospital reading romance novels. She also played a ton of games and really hoped that after she died, she'd be reborn as a character in a video game. So, someone heard her wish, and yeah, she got reincarnated, but not as the main character. And get this, she's stuck in a novel. She ended up as Ralia, a side character whose mom was already dead, a freaking princess. In the book, the church picked royal-blooded boys to prep them for the dragon's arrival. But instead of Rio, some fake went to the temple. The real Rio's fate sucked. He died as soon as the heroine's stepfather took the throne. Ralia came back from the temple years later and died almost immediately, tripped, and fell into a pond. Seriously, no way was she gonna die like that. She'd just gotten a new life after all. She tried to keep her distance from everyone in the novel and hid who she really was. But she ended up becoming friends with all the heirs anyway, and one day, they all went their separate ways. She went back to the country where her character was born, and her friends had already taken down the dragon by then. Their victory was awesome, but she had her own crap to deal with. She didn't have time to fangirl. One day, some dude stopped her in the street, convinced Ralia offed his buddy. That question floored her. She hadn't seen any of her friends in ages. Turns out, rumors were flying that the crown prince's killer was living the good life as a princess. Looks like all her friends bought it. They hated her and wanted payback for the prince. They all wanted to know why Ralia, or rather Rio, killed the former crown prince. The heroine's personal crap had zero effect on the city's vibe. You could hear the joy of the townsfolk celebrating their victory over the dragon everywhere you went. The story of 4 heroes reuniting after 6 years apart was the talk of every tavern. But the heroes themselves weren't exactly planning a party. One of them was sitting alone in his castle right now. The guy who walked in grabbed the daydreaming dude's attention. Blondie figured drinking alone was a real drag. The dark-haired guy knew no amount of booze could make them forget what happened. The castle owner asked the blonde how the tracing magic was coming along. They were still hoping to find some kind of lead, even after all these years. For years, these guys had been trying to track down the one who killed someone important to them. The blonde got where his buddy was coming from, but didn't know how else to help him out. The dude's eyes locked on a suitcase, neatly packed, with a stuffed bunny perched on top. He knew right away who it belonged to, and the realization stabbed him right in the heart again. Meanwhile, another one of the heroes hadn't given up hope of finding the killer. Kaix was locked and loaded. He just knew this time would be different. Superion, like always, told him to be careful and not go looking for trouble. He begged Kaix to hit him up no matter what, saying he wanted to help his buddy out. He ended by thanking Kaix again for the chance to fight alongside him on the Conqueror team. Superion was really hoping to finally introduce the hero to his niece one day. The hero made it clear he wasn't interested in meeting her, so Superion just said his goodbyes. A few seconds later, the hero was alone on the street. Even though the guy had saved the world, his soul was a mess because he couldn't save his friend. Back at the castle, Oscar wasn't exactly celebrating either. Once again, he admitted to himself how much he missed Rio. He walked over to the armchair, a look of annoyance on his face as he stared at the toy. Picking up the plush rabbit, he felt that familiar pain of loss all over again. Looking at the bunny, he vowed that he'd find the one who killed his friend, and soon, Oscar decided he'd get revenge on the killer with his own 2 hands. The truth is, this story originally had a completely different ending. The book about a company of heroic friends was called The Bright Dragon Conquest Team. The main character bought one of the books on a sunny day at a book fair. She couldn't wait to crack it open, but immediately realized something was seriously wrong with the plot. The illustrations of the main characters were nothing like she'd imagined them. The story itself seemed like total garbage to her. She knew exactly what kind of suffering these heroes had gone through. All she wanted right now was just one more chance to see them. That's it. The sound of a blade snapped her out of it, followed by the question of whether she killed his friend. Somehow, all her friends were completely convinced she was responsible for Leo's death. The way they looked at her, it's burned into her memory forever. All 4 of the friends she had just turned on her at once, full of hate. All they wanted was to see her dead, and the sooner the better. and now they'd found her, ready to finally get revenge for the murder. Terrified, she started saying it was all just a pack of lies. She desperately wanted to tell the truth, but something stopped her. A voice inside her head kept repeating that the person she shared those memories with was gone. The girl knew this was the end of her story. She closed her eyes, terrified and heartbroken, because her childhood friends were about to kill her. On the sacred neutral ground, Prince Rio fell into the lake, and one of his buddies spotted it. The kid reacted fast, preventing a tragedy and pulling the crown prince out of the water. The blonde guy yelled at the servants to move it. Since Rio had swallowed a ton of water, the adults immediately conjured a magic circle and focused it on the boy. A few moments later, the boy started coughing, his lungs clearing out the water. The servant noticed that, for some reason, Rio's body temperature still wasn't rising to normal. Opening his eyes, Rio heard them talking about moving him to a tent. He immediately replied that he was fine and didn't need any help. The kid just plopped down and told everyone to leave him alone. Finally getting into the warm bath, Ray started trying to calm himself down, kept saying it was all good, everything's fine. He was still in shock and jumped at every sound, every sudden move near him. Rayo was praying he wouldn't die, since nobody saw what happened. She felt like she was completely wiped out, and for some reason, still freezing. Memories of the hospital came crashing back, just pain and loneliness surrounding her. She was so weak, she could barely do anything, and even reading romance novels started to get old. Lately, she'd been spending more and more time on her phone, playing all kinds of games. The brunette got super into buying ingredients in the virtual shops and brewing up medicines there. In one of her latest games, she cooked up some medicine to cure a village girl. Video games were the perfect escape, a world where our girl could do anything. She happily hoarded all the loot, living large in the game if nowhere else. In those moments, she actually forgot about the garbage fire that was her real life. While she was playing, she forgot she was terminally ill, just counting down the days. More and more, she dreamed about getting sucked into a game after she died. And right now, she was seriously pissed off that her wish came true in the worst possible way. Okay, the reincarnation thing was kinda cool, but she didn't end up in a game. Turns out, she'd been dropped into the story of some cheesy romance novel she'd read. What freaked her out the most was the face staring back at her in the mirror. She felt a cold dread wash over her as she realized she was stuck as Ralia Auraria. The heroine was snapped out of her terrified thoughts by the servants, who were worried about the crown prince's condition. Afraid to come in, they asked if Rio was all right. Doing his best to sound calm, the guy replied that he was fine. After the servants left, the heroine let out a heavy breath. The girl realized she'd been close to death again, and only survived thanks to the priest's magic. Thoughts of death made her tremble with fear once more. She'd gotten stuck in a minor character's body, so she barely knew anything about Ralia. The heroine had no clue what, for example, this mark on her hand meant. The girl felt completely helpless. She really didn't want to live another pointless life. Right now, Ridios ruled the Aurarian Empire, and he had a sister, Iris, who, according to the story, died 7 years ago. Iris fell hard for some regular knight back when she was alive, and she had his kid, a daughter. With all the chaos in the Empire and the fight for the throne, they just plain forgot about Ralia. So basically, she spent her whole childhood in a tiny tower on the edge of the castle. All Ralia had was ratty clothes and a handful of maids. They're the only reason she didn't starve to death. Those were some rough years, but honestly, they were also the most peaceful she ever had. Everything went sideways the day Emperor Ridios summoned her. Ridios was straight up saying it was a dumb move for his sister to have a kid. But the way the Emperor was acting, he was totally stoked that Ralia was standing right there. He found out from the maids that nobody even knew she existed, except for them. The Emperor liked that answer, and bam! He stood up, went right to Ralia, and grabbed her hand. He said she had the blood oath mark on her hand, proving she was part of the royal family. Ridios also pointed out that she was about the same age as Prince Rio. Then, he ordered his servant to kill all the maids. Cold. He went on, saying that way back when, 5 knights beat a dragon and saved the world. Later, each of those knights started their own empire. When the dragon wakes up again, the knights who swore the blood oath gotta answer the church's call. A bunch of years went by, and now a dragon egg has popped up again in the world. This egg was indestructible, and dark magic was swirling all around it. Because of that thing, monsters are waking up again, and everyone's freaking out. The church decreed that the emperor's descendants gotta train at the temple and slay the dragon. So these 5 became humanity's new best shot. After that, the emperor called the kids a bunch of morons and whipped out his sword. Ridius figured, nothing's stopping him from taking the throne now, since he finally got rid of that thorn in his side. He didn't want to send his only son to the temple, 'cause rivals or even the temple staff could off him there. After telling his story, the emperor asked the girl if she understood everything. By then, she had a short haircut and was still looking at Ridius with fear in her eyes. He wrapped up by saying that from now on, she'd be taking his son Rio's place at the temple. Remembering all that, the girl started pounding the bed, pissed off that the emperor was such a scumbag. Remembering that awesome food kinda cooled down her spiral of bad thoughts. She got that the novel's main character had no choice but to agree to Ridius's demands. If the emperor hadn't used her, there was no guarantee she would have even survived back then. She decided she needed to start thinking positive and focus on what she knew about the story. If she doesn't change anything, Ralia's life ends with a plunge into the royal pond, which means as long as she's training at the temple, she's totally safe. Asking for help was too risky, since nobody knows Ralia's secret. She started freaking out about the situation she was in. If Ralia screws up, the Emperor's golden word magic will kick in, and she's instant toast. This whole thing is a lot like her life in the hospital. Guess not much has really changed. She was pissed that even in this new life, she'd be waiting to die on someone else's say-so. After getting her head straight, the girl decided she wouldn't let things play out how she knew they would. She became Ralia at 7 years old, so she still had time to change everything. All she had to do was avoid all the novel's main characters and not die in the pond. But first, she needed to survive the next 3 years in the temple. Nobody could figure out she was a fake Rei during that time. The girl was pumped. She headed out to where the future heroes were chilling. Meanwhile, one of the crown princes was already secretly watching her. The Kreutz Temple didn't just train the chosen heirs to thrones. There were also a bunch of noble kids from all sorts of countries here. The heroine figured the nobles were just solidifying ties with future allies from other big-shot families. This place was like paradise compared to that hospital she was stuck in. The dining hall was the biggest draw, always packed with tons of tasty food. Ralia overheard some girls complaining they couldn't get used to the schedule or the food here. They were griping about how they weren't allowed to bring their own servants. The girls also whined about how boring it was to wear the same uniform every day. Ralia thought her clothes were comfy, especially compared to what her character wore before. The slight problem for our girl was that the novel had zero information about life in this temple. It only got mentioned twice later on, and then only in the form of rumors. There was absolutely nothing about how Ralia spent 3 years of her life here, since she's supposed to die in the royal pond. They reassured her, saying there wouldn't be any danger in the temple. Her main job is to just lay low and stay out of sight while she's here. Still, the girl was bugged by the question. How the heck do you trip and drown in a royal pond? At least they didn't offer in some backwater nowhere, so there's that. Her train of thought was interrupted by a voice asking if she was all right. The kid popping up, especially that close, totally caught her off guard. Grinning, the dude said he was the one who saved Rei yesterday. Giving her a good look, the blonde repeated that he'd pulled her from drowning yesterday. The guy doubted Rei knew about his heroic deed, but she quickly reassured him and thanked him for saving her life. After that, Ralia took a good look at her new friend. This blonde guy was definitely a looker, and for sure one of Romeo Roseberry's story heroes. He was one of the heroes who'd eventually take down the dragon. The girl remembered that in the plot, this dude had a kind and upstanding personality. The silence was making Romeo sweat. He told Rio to stop staring and say something already. Rio finally snapped back to reality and thanked Romeo again for saving him. Looks like a simple "thank you" wasn't cutting it for this blonde hottie. He wondered why the crown prince kept saying "thank you" so many times, as a sign of gratitude. Romeo figured the heroine didn't know any other words. This kind of brazen attitude didn't match the novel's image of a kind young man at all. Exasperated, Rio cut to the chase and asked Romeo what he wanted from him. Romeo needed the heroine to cover for him while he prayed at the temple. His plan was for Rio to say Romeo crashed in his room and shouldn't be disturbed. Ralia thought the request was way too basic. Romeo figured if the crown prince told the monks this story, they'd believe it without question. The heroine didn't want to get involved, but she owed her savior, so she agreed. The girl realized the guy wasn't at all what people made him out to be. The heroine decided she should eat as well as possible while she was at the temple. She knew she'd have trouble eating right again once she got back home. Romeo was curious if Rayo had the mark on his palm. When he said yes, the kid wanted to see it to make sure it was legit. Ralia was dying to know what the blonde would say about her mark. Seeing the exact same mark as his own, Romeo was now totally convinced that all 5 heirs had won. Just then, all the girls in the room suddenly focused their attention on someone else. The main character was shocked again when she saw who everyone was staring at. It was Griffith Nakia, and he looked completely detached from everything going on around him. Romeo clearly didn't click with Griffith, because he immediately called him stupid and pathetic. The girl genuinely couldn't understand how anyone could dislike Griffith. Someday, this kid's gonna be one of the world's most legendary heroes. He'll also be remembered as one of the youngest emperors in history. Among the heroes, he'll be known as the strongest, yet he's got a super chill personality. This girl had no clue what Romeo's deal was with that dude in the temple, but it couldn't have been good. A split second later, she spotted another face that'd be famous later on. He stood out from the crowd with those freaky red eyes and silver hair. After a moment, she recognized him as Oscar Hersfeld. History would remember that guy as the psycho emperor. Romeo spotted another somebody who was getting on his nerves. It was Kaix Asgard, another big shot from the Empire who'd also become a legend. The girl remembered Kaix way too well. He was the Emperor of Asgard's nephew. He was the one who paid the ultimate price after the Light Dragon hunt. The girl felt like something was off, because she was suddenly surrounded by all the main characters from the novel. Ralia remembered that Kaix ends up marrying the main female character, the childhood friend, at the end of the story. Romeo's question snapped her out of it. He wanted to make sure Rio hated all those guys as much as he did. She hesitated answering, which Romeo didn't like. They're friends now, which means she's gotta hate them too. The girl was stunned by that logic, but she tried to keep her face neutral. She just said, "Yeah, I feel the same way about those boys." Romeo thought that was a lame answer. She glanced down at her soup. Gotta remember what's important here. She's just gonna eat well and avoid all those future hero types as much as humanly possible. Ralia absolutely had to stay away from them if she wanted to survive in this novel's world. From now on, she's avoiding any contact with the Empire heirs. After lunch, our girl decided to take a walk and really check out this temple. But she had to stop because she heard a kid crying his eyes out. It was Oscar, and he suddenly started bawling and acting like he was trying to shut everyone out. He kept saying no, over and over, with tears just streaming down his face. The kid tried to stop crying and chill out, but he just couldn't do it. He heard his dad's voice in his head, and it felt like there was this huge bloody sword hanging over him. The voice was pissed because Oscar had looked away from his dead mom. The voice demanded that the kid stare into his deceased mother's eyes. According to the voice, those bloodshot eyes were a symbol of spilled blood. Oscar could still hear the voice, and now it was calling him a monster. The voice kept repeating that the kid was a real monster. The boy covered his ears just to block out that voice. The next thing he knew, his mom was calling his name. At some point, the kid's mom woke up and told her son she was hurting. The woman's hand tried to reach for the boy's face. Mom begged the kid to save her. She said it over and over. Out of the corner of his eye, Oscar saw a hand appear right in front of his face. Immediately after, he heard a totally different voice. The face that popped up told him all those images in his head were just lies. Hands reached for Oscar's face, telling him not to listen to the voice in his head. Oscar finally locked eyes with the kid. Ray kept telling him to look straight at him. Then the heroine told Oscar to chill out. She added that he was safe now. Ray chimed in, saying the kid was out of danger and totally unharmed. A little late to the party, the monks came running, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. They crowded around the crown prince and asked him what had happened. The girl noticed the guy was starting to look a little better. Now she was calming down herself and took a deep breath. Honestly, the heroine was super proud of herself for snapping Oscar out of that horrible vision. She felt bad for the little dude, especially knowing what he'd just seen. She just stood there, watching the monk carry the crown prince away. His own father slaughtered tons of people right in front of the kid, including his mom. Dad called Oscar a monster because of his eye color, and the dude suffered with that his whole life, until she told him his eyes were beautiful. That's when our girl figured out that getting rid of his inner demons like that made sense. It was all easy in the novel, but seeing a little boy suffer like that just plain sucked. Now, the main character understood that Oscar's childhood was way tougher than she thought. So, when the kid started having an attack, she immediately told the guys to run and get the priests. She just couldn't stand to watch the kids suffer. It's only now hitting her that she accidentally messed around with the backstory of one of the main characters. Romeo snuck up on her and scared the crap out of her by saying she looked a lot like a heretic. The girl grilled the guy, asking why he didn't help when he saw Oscar needed it. He clearly didn't like the question, because he said falling in a pond and this situation are totally different. That answer didn't fly with her at all, but she decided not to say anything to the blonde dude. Instead, she just walked away. But Romeo seemed to start following her. He asked about the spell Ray used, but Ray shot back that he was just trying to calm him down. Romeo was like, "How do you calm down someone who's possessed by a demon?" In this novel's world, regular people's understanding was seriously limited. Anyone suffering from something unseen was automatically labeled as demon-possessed. That's exactly why no one tried to help Oscar during his episode. Even the temple priests started suspecting Oscar was possessed at one point. Maybe that's what messed Oscar up so bad later on, with his mental health. The girl, all business, told Romeo that demons weren't real, just fallout from some messed up stuff in his past. She compared Oscar's freakout to the kind of fears you get during a nightmare. Romeo wasn't buying it, told her that her logic was totally busted. He started ranting about how Ray, as the crown prince of Aurelia, shouldn't be acting like that. Right then, Romeo struck her as a complete and utter creep. She remembered how the grown-up Romeo was always super kind and considerate to the main girl. A split second later, the girl remembered that Romeo had his own baggage from the past too. Oscar wanted to hear more of the story, and Ralia had to ask him what part he was talking about. He wanted to know more about people who have nightmares, even when they're wide awake. Looks like Romeo was seriously hung up on this topic. He practically begged her to tell him everything she knew about it. The girl just figured his eagerness was plain old curiosity. After all, she was talking to just a regular nosy kid. Ralia tried to explain that the human mind is super fragile and unstable. If something traumatic happened, your mind just keeps replaying it over and over. Eventually, it stops being a memory and starts feeling like reality. When Ray mentioned that some people kill themselves because of it, Romeo blew up, saying it was a huge sin. He thought people who off themselves give their souls to the devil, that it goes against religion and is a sin. The girl just replied that some people can't help it. Romeo figured the reason these people were screwed up was because they were possessed by a demon. Ralia was trying to get through to the blonde dude, saying that constant visions mess with your head, and that's what leads to death. The main girl finally understood why Romeo was so hooked on what she was saying. He actually saw his own mother commit suicide. She was forced into marriage for power. Nobody gave a damn about what she felt. The only lucky break she got was that the emperor genuinely tried to fall in love with Romeo's mom. He didn't pressure her, just waited for her to open her heart to him. Then, her parents started threatening her, saying if she didn't give birth to an heir, they'd kill her true love. That's how Romeo ended up being born. But her parents kept exploiting her weakness. They used her boyfriend every time they wanted something. But one day, the guy locked up in the dungeon offed himself. He did it so the Empress could finally be free and stop suffering. She blamed herself for his death, spiraling into despair, and started hallucinating. In the end, she chose the same path as the man she loved. She had no idea her son would witness her end. Rumors instantly spread through the castle that the Empress died because she was possessed by a demon. The servants worried that Romeo might suffer the same fate. It completely broke the boy, who had grown up surrounded by love. Even though the blonde didn't suffer from hallucinations like Oscar, the wound never really healed. Romeo only confessed his fear of demons to the main girl in the book. The girl couldn't pretend she didn't know about the young man's problems. She knew the day would come when this wound would finally heal. She looked at her buddy and decided to reassure him again. Ralia repeated, again, that demons just aren't real. And she finished by saying she totally believed it. She pointed out that it's not imaginary demons that cause pain, but real people. Those words seemed to sting him too. He didn't know what to say. He gathered his thoughts and finally decided to keep the conversation going. Romeo was now completely convinced Ray was a heretic, which she totally didn't expect. Romeo was still bummed, but he decided to explain his thinking anyway. He figured only a heretic could believe that kind of stuff. Romeo goes, if the monks heard her, they'd burn her at the stake for heresy. Ray, all menacing, asks Romeo if he's even considered the fallout from his big mouth. The heroine suddenly grabs the guy's shirt, and that freaks him right out. She warns him that nobody can know about their little chat. If Romeo spills the beans, Ray will straight up kill him, no joke. She's waiting for him to answer, and this dude is seriously sweating bullets now. The girl decides to lay down the law and figures out the best way to do it. The main character suddenly remembers a passage from that novel. The hierarchy plan clicks into place, so she shoves him away just to show him who's boss. Then she tells him, from now on, Romeo's gotta call her captain. Romeo definitely wasn't ready for that. He didn't get why he should call her that, seeing as he'd exploited her vulnerability. Putting on a confident front, she hinted that Romeo was on track to becoming her enemy. Looks like the tone, words, and her whole vibe did the trick. Romeo might have wanted to argue, but he didn't dare. But he absolutely did not want to address Ray as captain. He promised he wouldn't tell anyone, but in exchange, he wanted to know more about demons. The kid wanted to know if it was true that people weren't possessed when they acted like Oscar did today. The girl agreed to tell Romeo whatever else he wanted to hear. Having gotten the agreement he wanted, Romeo quietly thanked her, calling her captain. Finally, the incident was over, and the heroine could breathe easy. Now she was scratching her head, wondering how the future hero ended up taking orders from her. Meanwhile, Oscar had come to and was just chilling in his room. The monk wanted to know if the rumor was true. Did Crown Prince Rio really hit Oscar? The kid said it was true, and he was about to add something. But that news sent the priestess into shock. How could one crown prince punch another? Oscar realized they got the wrong idea and tried to explain the whole story. He focused on his memories, on Rio's face. Now the kid was absolutely sure of one thing. Crown Prince Rio was trying to help him snap out of his vision. The next morning, our main character woke up with Romeo hanging around. She still wasn't totally sold on making him her subordinate. It was kind of freaky that Romeo had just waltzed into her room to chat. It felt way too casual and weird coming from that blonde dude. Judging by the knock, someone else decided to pop in on the Crown Prince, bright and early. Rio was hoping Romeo would get the door. After all, he was his subordinate. The blonde just stared at his captain, clueless why he was getting the stink eye. After a few seconds of silence, he slammed his book shut, looking annoyed. grumbling about being interrupted at the good part. He went to answer the door. Seeing that, Ralia realized she might have gone a little overboard with the whole subordinate thing. Romeo was dead certain some preacher was here to drag them to prayer. But the second he saw who was at the door, the dude got pissed. The girl couldn't see who it was, but Romeo was already all up in the guy's face, asking what he wanted. Ralia stepped up to the door and saw their visitor was Oscar Hresvelg. Romeo doubled down, demanding to know why the kid was here. Oscar looked totally freaked out and didn't say a word. Ralia stepped in front of Romeo and told him not to scare their guest, even if he was here for no reason. The blonde was still salty about the uninvited guest, but he decided not to argue with the captain. Walking into the room and taking a seat at the table, Oscar said he came to thank Ray for his help yesterday. Ralia could tell the kid was super embarrassed, so she told him no thanks were needed and he could just forget about it. Truth is, from the jump, the heroine just wanted to act like nothing happened. She didn't exactly rush to help either, because she was second-guessing herself. The girl got all awkward from the thank yous, so she changed the subject, asked Oscar to grab some grub with her. She wanted to share the snacks, but it felt a little weird since Romeo brought them. Looks like that generosity didn't sit too well with Blondie. He got up from the couch and went over to Oscar, trying to figure something out. Blondie noticed the kid started stuttering real bad after the attack, which was kinda sus. The girl thought the dude was being totally insensitive. Oscar tried to answer, seeing he was causing a fight. The kid said he only stutters when he's super stressed. That answer just pissed Romeo off even more, and he started mocking Oscar. That was it for Ralia. She demanded he stop acting like such a jerk to her friends. Hearing Rio call Oscar a friend made the crown prince cringe. The blonde guy pointed at the kid, asking how anyone could even consider him a friend. Then, he reminded her that he'd already told her he didn't like this dude. Rayo was done. He slammed his hands on the table and stood up. The captain's outburst shut the blonde bully down real quick. He spun around and stormed right out of the room. Judging by the door slam, the blonde guy was seriously raging. She thought Romeo was a bit of an idiot anyway, but she hadn't expected him to take off like that. The heroine tried to calm herself, mentally repeating that Romeo was just a kid, which meant she now had to apologize to Oscar on the blonde's behalf. Ray tried to explain that Romeo was actually a good guy, even if it was hard to believe. Oscar thought the whole conversation was a lie, which really surprised her. Looking off into the distance, Oscar mentioned that he didn't have any friends. The kid figured that someone who stuttered like him could never be liked by anyone. Those words hit Ralia hard, and she struggled to find the right thing to say. The girl felt like she was talking to a little kid. Little kids shouldn't be talking about themselves like that, especially so calmly. She was trying to carefully craft her response. Ray said Oscar could totally start being friends with him, since he tried to help him out yesterday. The kid didn't expect that offer, and gave the main character a real hard look. He didn't believe Ray would have helped him if she'd known about the stutter beforehand. The girl told him she would have helped him no matter what. Nobody had ever treated the crown prince like that before, so Oscar didn't answer right away. Gathering his courage and still stuttering, he thanked Ray. After that, Oscar asked Ray if she knew his name. Ray knew it perfectly well, so she immediately replied that he was the crown prince of the Hresvelg Empire. After that, the main character regretted drawing the attention of a second main character in the novel. Even though she just wanted to live unnoticed by everyone, the main character was caught off guard when Oscar asked why Romeo called him Captain. The girl lied and said that Romeo saw her comforting Oscar, and that's why he started showing her so much respect. Hearing that, Oscar asked if he could call Ralia Captain too. The kid was clearly embarrassed by his request, but he still repeated it. Looks like this girl's life in this place was just getting weirder and weirder. She remembered a scene from the novel where Oscar takes revenge on his father for killing his mother and becomes a bloodthirsty emperor. Back then, he swore to his father that from that moment on, everyone who crossed his path would fear him. With that memory in mind, the heroine was a little freaked out about becoming Oscar's captain. The boy totally misinterpreted her hesitation, thinking her indecisiveness was because of yesterday's episode. When Ray said the episode had nothing to do with it, Oscar figured it was his stutter. The heroine snapped back that his stutter had nothing to do with it either. The word captain just dredged up some seriously bad memories, like death was breathing down my neck. But Oscar had absolutely no clue what was causing it. She had to dig deep, like really dig deep, to force the next words out. But even then, she just couldn't spit out the words Oscar was dying to hear. Finally, Oscar actually got the green light to call Ray Captain, if it meant that much to him. His mood instantly shot through the roof thanks to Ray's unexpected approval. After calming down, she added that Oscar could call Ray whatever he wanted. Ralia gave the happy-go-lucky crown prince a long, hard look. He was on cloud 9, especially since he thought Ray hated his guts just a second ago. For her, That admission was like discovering some brand new truth. After that, things got super awkward between them. Oscar took that silence to mean the main girl wasn't into him. To set the record straight, she blurted out that she totally liked Oscar. The kid chilled out, stoked to hear someone actually liked him. Looks like they could finally wrap up this convo. The heroine was still a little freaked they might find out her secret, but she was feeling calmer now. She noticed both crown princes were seriously hot, and Oscar was practically an angel. Oscar declared he'd always be counting on his captain from now on. And just like that, the heroine was closing in on the moment when all hell would break loose at the temple. Powerful enemies were gathering to take out one of the crown princes. And just like that, the assassin got the green light to carry out the emperor's merciless plan. The next morning, Romeo, all smiles, caught up with Rio and asked if he'd slept well. The blonde also wanted to know why Rio hadn't asked him to come grab breakfast. This sudden change in the blonde's behavior was definitely turning heads among the other students. And to top it all off, another unexpected guest was about to join their little party. Oscar also walked up to Ralia and asked the captain if he'd slept well. The kid clearly wasn't backing down with Romeo around and declared he was eating breakfast with them too. Romeo was against it and straight up said so, which only made everyone stare even harder. The girl stood there horrified by what was happening, trying to figure out how this even became a thing. Going over the events of the last few days, she realized she only had herself to blame for this mess. Ralia snapped out of her thoughts when the boys finally repeated their question. They were totally in sync, staring at Ray and worrying about why he was so quiet. The girl glanced at her new unexpected friends, still unsure what to do with them. Ralia said she was just hungry, and that's when Romeo remembered something. He realized there was an event happening at the temple tonight, something about all the students needing to get together and do something. It was a tradition that helped kids get over their fear of the dark. The whole group had to climb the mountain and work together to conquer their fear of demons. Once the kids reached the right spot, they'd light a demon banishing candle and head back down. They had to climb the mountain in pairs with a buddy so they could beat their fear of demons together. The monks said not to sweat it, because only small animals live on that mountain. Some guys were stoked for the challenge, but others were scared to hike it at night. Romeo asked the captain who he was teaming up with. Ray said he'd go solo, and Oscar would partner with Romeo. Romeo wasn't thrilled about that, but Oscar was down with whatever the captain ordered. So the guys just accepted they'd have to work together. Before splitting up, Romeo double-checked with the captain, asking if he was sure there weren't any demons. The girl told Romeo he had nothing to worry about, and definitely shouldn't fear any demons. Oscar cautiously added that he didn't believe in demons either, and wasn't scared of them. Romeo, looking terrified, declared he wasn't scared of loser Oscar. Rio wanted to know why Romeo looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Girl knew Oscar wasn't scared of demons, because his dad was way more terrifying. Demons hide in the dark, but his old man killed right in front of him when he was just a kid. In that way, Oscar was a lot like Ralia's character. Darkness had always been with her, and back then, she only feared one thing. She didn't want to starve to death in some dungeon where everyone forgot about her. Romeo was trying to prove something to Oscar, but the kid couldn't care less what the blonde guy said. The girl figured hiding from the novel's characters was pointless, and felt like they'd become part of her life, like real friends. She really didn't want to mess with what was supposed to happen tonight, because tonight, wolves would be on the mountain with only one goal: to take out one of the crown princes. The heroine knew no one would believe her if she told the monks about this. That meant she had to somehow stop this tragedy all by herself. The two crown princes had been wandering through the forest for ages, but they still couldn't find the hut. One of the boys figured out they were totally lost. He blamed the other one for being so careless and getting them off track. The other guy didn't agree with that at all, insisting he hadn't made a single mistake. Just then, the dude tripped over a tree root. He lost his balance and started to fall. He landed really badly, and a sharp pain shot through his ankle. To top it off, he smashed his lantern when he fell. This whole thing turned into a fight, because now it's going to be way harder to walk around in the dark without a lantern. Griffith thought Kaix's excuses were total BS. Kaix was pissed and wasn't about to take that kind of crap. A few seconds later, the guys were throwing punches. Luckily, it didn't last long, but unfortunately, these two weren't about to chill out either. Beat up, Griffith said they were now in a seriously dumb situation. They just wasted a ton of time and decided to split up right there. Kaix was positive it wasn't his fault they got lost. Seeing his buddy walk away, Kaix just yelled after him that Griffith was a coward. Now our girl's finding out stuff that the book barely even touched on. Griffith, looking back, said they argued over something stupid that day. Both men regretted that little spat, which led to Kaix being left alone in the woods. It just hit the kid. That fall wasn't without consequences. With a busted ankle and no flashlight, there was no way he could make it alone. He figured he'd just hunker down till morning, so he wouldn't get lost or fall again. Suddenly, Kaix heard a noise close by. At first, he thought Griffith got spooked going alone and came back for him, but when he turned around, he saw a glowing hand reaching out of the bushes. It was a straight-up creepy sight that would freak anyone out. For a few seconds after seeing it, the kid just froze, paralyzed with terror. Suddenly, the hand told him it wasn't Griffith. That just freaked Kaix out even more, and he was about ready to scream his head off. At this critical moment, Ralia realized she'd snagged her clothes on a bush, of all things. She struggled like crazy to get loose from the damn thing. Just then, she felt someone staring hard at her. She barely managed to turn around when she saw Kaix leaping at her from above, yelling that the demon had to go. The next thing she knew, she felt a hard kick in the back. A few seconds later, Kaix realized that it was Crown Prince Rio standing in front of him. Kaix quickly added that he'd seen Rio step up and start acting like a leader. Rio replied that, thankfully, Kaix finally figured out he wasn't facing a demon. The heroine told the Crown Prince they needed to get off this mountain ASAP, like, start heading down right now. The kid was totally lost as to why Rio was so desperate to leave. He plopped down on the ground, making it clear he wasn't going anywhere. The dude figured hiking at night in his condition would be totally insane. They'd be way better off just chilling here until morning. The heroine suddenly snapped, deciding he was just some ignorant, carefree brat. She'd come all this way just to save his butt from a tragedy where he loses his arm. The girl figured she needed to lay the truth about tonight on the Crown Prince. She told him a pack of wolves would be on the mountain tonight, and she wasn't kidding. Naturally, Kaix didn't buy a single word she said. Guess we're going scorched earth on this thing. A few seconds later, the girl decided to ask a crucial question. She wanted to know how much the Crown Prince trusted his uncle. That question was like a switch for Kaix. He jumped up and lunged at Ralia. He called Ray a little punk, his eyes blazing with rage. Kaix demanded Ray tell him right now who sent him. The girl didn't get why Kaix was reacting so aggressively to the question. Ray showed his mark and reminded him that he was the Crown Prince of Auraria, and the Aurarian Emperor sent him. Looks like that argument, and the mark cooled him down. At first, Kaix thought his uncle had sent Ray, but now it was clear that wasn't possible. Ralia told the Crown Prince she had a really strong gut feeling about things. The Kaix Empire's been getting trashed for ages by the Emperor's iron fist. The government was working everyone into the ground, leaving no room for a decent life. Kaix saw his uncle as family, but to his uncle, Kaix was just a pain in the ass. Because Kaix could come for the Emperor's throne, his uncle wanted him dead before that could happen. Kaix realized that, according to Ray, the Emperor was gonna sick the wolves on him tonight. Ray said that's exactly right, even if it sounds totally crazy. Kaix just smirked, not taking Ray's words seriously at all. Then Kaix said, in that case, should he just roll over and die tonight? Turns out, the kid's been figuring for a while that the Emperor might want him gone. So everything's cool, and the Crown Prince will die exactly how his beloved uncle wants him to. After that, Kaix flopped down on the ground and told Ray to scram before the beasts showed up. Ignoring Ralia, he added that this was a family matter, so a prince from another country should get lost, pronto. The heroine couldn't just leave a kid to die out there. She wasn't sure if her showing up in the novel had already messed with the main storyline. And now, the Crown Prince risked losing not just his arm, but his whole life. Now the heroine's gotta make another tough call, cause she knew Kaix was just hiding a ton of fear behind that tough guy act. Seeing that Ray wasn't leaving, Kaix started threatening him to get the hell out of there, ASAP. Ray was gonna bounce anyway, whether he was being chased off or not. Looks like that answer just fueled Kaix's fear and anger even more. A few moments later, Ralia made it clear she wasn't leaving this place alone. She asked Kaix to just hang in there for a bit. Seeing someone coming at him with a huge club, Kaix completely freaked out. A second later, Kaix was out cold, which the heroine was glad about, since she didn't want to have to hit him more than once. But there was one major flaw in the heroine's plan. Turns out, Kaix was way heavier than Ralia originally thought. On top of everything, the girl had no idea which way to go. She decided to follow the moonlight and stick to the path, but she wasn't sure if that was the right call. The thought that she didn't know the way out because of the magic affecting her started to scare her. A few seconds later, she heard something moving in the bushes, sounded like a wolf. But it was a guy, and the first thing he wanted to know was what Ray was doing there. Turns out it was Griffith, and he was holding a lit-up lantern. She couldn't figure out how he'd gotten there, because in the book, he just ditched his buddy that day and walked. The main character introduced herself as the Crown Prince of Auraria, but Griffith was all about why Ray was in this spot. Ralia said it was a long and complicated story, and they were seriously short on time. Ray added that wolves would be showing up soon, but Griffith thought that was impossible. She repeated that they needed to get off the mountain ASAP, and he could start doubting her later. Griffith pointed out that all the paths were tangled, which wasn't news to her. She was just hoping to find a way out. The guy couldn't wrap his head around all this weird behavior from the Crown Prince of Auraria. A second later, Griffith announced he'd already found the path. That news was both super welcome and totally unexpected. The guy pointed to the fireflies powering his lamp. The girl was surprised again, since the book said Griffith could see in the dark, no problem. It was a royal family birthright. But in the novel, the kid ditches his friend when his lamp goes out. Just then, Griffith asked why Ray was dragging Kaix, and she said Kaix had fainted from fear. Looks like Griffith was totally satisfied with that answer, because he thought Kaix was a stuck-up weakling anyway. The girl figured even if Griffith was being a jerk, he was still a good guy for coming back for Kaix. In the original story, those two guys only crossed paths completely by chance. That thought made Ralia chuckle with this I know everything villain vibe. Hey, knock it off with that weird laugh, the Crown Prince said to her. Looks like this Griffith guy isn't the Prince Charming the novel reader imagined. Now, she's even more convinced that this dude is a stand-up guy, a good person. After that, the main character told Griffith to get her out of there ASAP. Griffith sighed and said they just needed to follow the firefly's light. In the blink of an eye, the girl was overcome with fear. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a huge wolf appear right next to her. Griffith reacted fast, trying to step in front of Ray to shield the Crown Princess from the beast. But he wasn't quick enough, and the heroine felt a sharp pain in her stomach. Blood started dripping right away, and the girl was seized by terror. But that didn't mean she was gonna ditch Kaix and run. A split second later, Griffith, stunned by the sudden wolf pack, was already standing in front of them. The wolves were super aggressive, and the princes couldn't immediately figure out how many enemies were surrounding them. It felt like the number of wolves was doubling every second. Griffith couldn't figure out how wolves could even be in this forest. The girl was trying to get Griffith's attention so he'd help her out. She needed him to blow her whistle, the kind the priests use. She added, her voice firm, that he needed to do it ASAP. Griffith glanced over at Crown Prince Ray, though it was only for a second. He was surprised how the wounded Crown Prince could stay so calm and fearless. Ray's eyes screamed confidence, like he was totally in control. But inside, the girl was freaking terrified. Her legs felt like jelly. She knew even if the whistle worked, the priests wouldn't show up instantly. Griffith jumped to Ray's side and blew the whistle. A tiny spark of hope flickered. Even then, someone was watching them, and they were using magic to do it. It was the guy planning to off the Crown Prince, and he saw the kids calling for backup. Ralia hoped it would freak out the attackers, and they'd bail with the wolves. The whistle didn't last long, because one of the wolves leaped at the princes. Griffith took the hit like a champ, shoving his stick in front of him. His lightning reflexes stopped the wolf's attack cold. Another wolf lunged at the kid right then. Griffith couldn't even turn around, and the beast ended up biting the prince's arm. Things were happening way too fast. The heroine felt totally helpless. Then, bam! Magic energy suddenly surrounded Griffith. Ralia saw that the boy was now standing right in the middle of a magic circle. According to the story, the prince wasn't supposed to get this power until way later. Looks like the stress changed everything, and Griffith seemed just as shocked by this power-up. Just then, Kaix started to wake up, complaining about the noise and the bright light. Opening his eyes, the Crown Prince couldn't figure out what was going on. Griffith was standing right in front of him, his arm covered in blood. And get this, there was also a pack of wolves nearby, and they were clearly looking for trouble. Ray tried to calm the Crown Prince down after he came to, but Kaix immediately demanded to be released and shoved her away. He was way stronger than her, so he easily overpowered her resistance. A second later, he was already on his feet, even though it was clearly causing him pain. He glanced at the wolves and made a snap decision. One of the wolves immediately pounced on the kid and knocked him down. The girl saw blood splatter, and she knew Kaix wasn't getting out of this alive. All the kids could do was watch as the wolf killed the Crown Prince. They were helpless. In the original story, Kaix lost an arm, but he mastered a massive sword and played a key role in the dragon fight. But he paid way too steep a price for that win. Even just for that reason alone, she wanted to protect the future hero's hand. It was the only thing she wanted. She figured Kaix was almost killed today because she didn't train him well enough. Suddenly, she heard Calix's voice. He was still alive. He managed to shove the wolf off him, still trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Ralia saw Kaix had a dagger in his hand, the one he used to defend himself. She was blown away that the prince took down a wolf with just a regular little dagger. After dealing with the wolf, he said his friends should have warned him these wolves were for real. Ralia thought he was a total idiot. She did warn him about real wolves. Griffith figured they had bigger fish to fry than debating whether those wolves were real or not. They'd only taken out a few. Most of the damn wolves were still kicking. Just then, the mage chilling nearby fired up a new spell. Next thing you know, the wolves started acting all weird and looking even weirder. A few seconds later, every single wolf that was left turned into sand. Griffith saw the whole thing, but he couldn't wrap his head around what the hell just happened. The heroine chimed in, saying the attackers decided to wipe all the evidence of what went down here. Now Griffith was positive someone was pulling the strings with those wolves. The Crown Prince realized the whistle was supposed to make the attackers back off. Griffith nailed it this time, but the girl wasn't about to confirm or deny anything he said. The one thing Griffith couldn't figure out was who the attackers were after. Kaix was dead certain that the mercenaries were coming for him this time. Sand-shifting magic is only used in his empire, and he was holding the proof of that right in his hand, which meant only one thing for Crown Prince Kaix. His beloved uncle really was trying to off him today. The girl could tell how messed up the guy was feeling right now. She wanted to say something to comfort him, but she just couldn't find the right words. The heroine knew she had to snap him back to reality, like ASAP. Truth be told, she was secretly relieved that Kaix was still alive and hadn't lost his hand. Ray still thought it was too dangerous here, so he told Kaix to hop on his back. He told the others again that they needed to get down the mountain as soon as possible. Griffith thought, we should be the one carrying Kaix. Ralia was against that, seeing as the dude had a huge gash on his arm. Looking at Kaix, the girl added that she didn't have the strength to knock him out again. The guy was still pissed at himself and the Emperor, even though he was honestly trying to get it together. While Ray was trying to get Kaix on his back, Griffith distantly rebandaged his arm. Once Kaix finally got on Ray, they were able to start moving. Only now did Kaix notice his left ankle was killing him from the fall, and now his right one was too. Turns out Ray accidentally stepped on it after he knocked the Crown Prince out cold. Just a minute ago, Griffin thought those two were about to kick the bucket from exhaustion, but now they looked like buddies who just had a killer nap. Looks like those two bonded while wolves were trying to make them lunch. The long-awaited morning arrived, but things were tense at the temple camp. The monks were sweating it, since those two crown princes still hadn't come back. Romeo and Oscar piped up, saying Rio went up the mountain alone and still ain't back either. Oscar was worried something bad had happened to all the missing crown princes. Then, he spotted some figures in the distance. Oscar instantly recognized one of them as the captain. Ralia looked beat, and Prince Kaix was zonked out on her back. Realizing the mission was complete and the guys were safe, she finally allowed herself to rest. Everything ahead was blurry, but she could tell the monks had spotted them. A few seconds later, the girl passed out cold. Our girl heard someone nearby crying softly and forced herself to open her eyes. Oscar's tear-streaked face popped into view, and he immediately asked if their captain was okay. She was still trying to figure out why Oscar was standing there, all teary-eyed. The kid replied that he was crying because his captain was hurt. Romeo explained that Ralia was inside the temple. After the captain woke up, Oscar decided to go get a priest. Only now did she remember everything that had happened and immediately asked how everyone else was doing. Oscar said the crown princes were meeting with the priest right now and that they went there straight after getting healed. Just then, the priestess showed up and asked Ray how he was feeling. Ralia answered as quickly as she could that she was fine. She felt around the injury and realized nothing hurt, not even a little. That means the wound on her stomach completely healed. The thought that her clothes were still intact sent shivers of panic down the heroine's spine. The priestess understood what the girl was going through and why. There was no way to miss that she was a girl, not the boy Prince Ray, while changing her clothes. Seeing the sudden shift in the captain's mood, Oscar started to worry about him again. The priestess whispered in Relia's ear that she was the one who changed her clothes, so the girl had nothing to worry about. Relia's secret stays buried, as far as everyone's concerned. The woman swore she wouldn't breathe a word of it to anyone. That almost put the heroine at ease, even though she was still a little shaky. Ray had to reassure his buddies again and convince them he was fine. Before the girl could even catch her breath, more visitors showed up. It was Kaix and Griffith, and they both said Ray looked okay. Seeing those guys was a huge relief for her. She noticed Griffith's hand was completely healed. Kaix was unharmed too, and most importantly, he had both his hands. In that moment, Ralia felt like the luckiest person alive. All four heroes were finally together, and they were all safe. Couldn't ask for more than that. Griffith thought Ray needed to meet with the high priest. The group was planning to file an official complaint against the temple because of what happened. This whole thing was going south fast, so Ray wasn't sure how to react. See, she knew damn well the kind of fallout that would hit the temple and the heroes after the incident. Every single one of the 5 empires in the original story was alerted about the attack on Kaix, and a full-blown investigation was launched. Because of that, the situation spiraled completely out of control, and Kaix's uncle was trying to bury the whole thing as soon as possible. The 5 kingdoms teamed up with the temple and mobilized their armies. In the end, the temple apologized to every empire and used their warriors to seriously beef up security. All of this really messed with Kaix, who was already dealing with losing his arm. In the original story, Kaix knew his uncle was plotting to off him, but the kid couldn't trust anyone, so he ended up totally alone. The other kids started steering clear of the future hero, since his life was in danger. Ray asked if anyone else knew what went down up in the mountains. If nobody knows now, it's better if it stays that way, you know? The guys didn't get why Ray wouldn't take this info to the Empire. Romeo and Oscar were also scratching their heads at their captain's call. Ray just gave Kaix this intense look. The girl knew he was bottling everything up. In the original story, Kaix turned his back on the crown and became a mercenary king. And the kicker? Right now, this badass is just a 10-year-old kid. To protect Kaix from any fallout, we had to bury this whole thing. Griffith couldn't possibly know that, so he still didn't get why Ray was against it. It was a simple, straightforward question, but damn hard to answer. But the heroine came up with a solution, saying the problem was, if her dad found out, they'd be in deep shit. Because Ray's dad is super protective, kisses her every day, and can't sleep without hugging the prince. That description of her dad shocked and horrified the princes. So she got the effect she wanted. If her dad finds out, he'll be furious. The crown princes understood the danger. Kaix said he never intended to make a big deal out of it in the first place. Since Kaix was cool with it, Griffith decided not to stir up any trouble either. Romeo wouldn't let it go, yelling at the captain that he must have hit his head hard, because Ray could have died. The blonde guy kept screaming, now about how the captain's brain was totally fried, and the wolf bite made it even worse. Ralia couldn't take her friend's meltdown anymore, so she yelled at him to shut his trap. That worked on Romeo, and he finally stopped shouting his head off. A second later, Romeo announced he couldn't go against the dumb captain, turned around, and stormed towards the exit. Moments later, Ralia's door slammed shut with a bang. Ralia was stunned by the blonde's behavior. Plus, she got a serious sense of déjà vu. Oscar asked the captain to chill out, reminding him about Romeo's difficult but good-hearted nature. The kid pointed out that the captain needed to act like an adult, not a toddler. Kaix and Griffith watched Ray's conversation with his friends in silence. As soon as they had a chance, the guys asked why these princes were calling Ray captain. The girl explained it wasn't a game, and that the guys just decided to call her that. Nothing she could do about it. The answer threw the guys for a loop. They exchanged a silent look. Suddenly, they got this smug look on their faces, because they had a plan brewing. Griffith announced that they wanted to call Ray Captain too now. That news made Ralia shudder, because that was seriously not good. But the guys had already made up their minds, and now they were under Captain Ray's command. Ralia tried to get them to change their minds, but no dice. A few days later, the high priests came to the guys and personally apologized for the incident. The temple officials promised to thoroughly investigate the attack and swore it would never happen again. Of course, the investigation wouldn't lead anywhere, since the temple was in cahoots with the Asgardian emperor. A few days later, Romeo was demanding that nobody come near his side of things. Oscar was trying to explain to Blondie that he was the one invading personal space, always hogging the bed and rolling over. Griffith figured Romeo just needed to buy a bigger freaking bed, that's all. Kaix was already over this crap, and just wanted the whole argument to be over, so he could get back to his book. The whole situation felt way too unreal for our main character right now. I mean, all this complaining and bickering was taking place in Crown Prince Ray's bedroom, no less. Ralia didn't get why all the heroes suddenly dragged their beds into her room, and were begging Ray to sleep with them. Eventually, the girl just bolted out of her own bedroom. How was she even supposed to sleep in the same room as all these crown princes now? Ralia's head was already pounding at the thought of having to sleep with 4 heroes. She knew she'd messed with the storyline big time, and had no clue what to do about it. All she could do was hope everything would be all right, and they wouldn't find out the truth about her. But even if things went perfectly, in 3 years, the day would come that would be the end of their whole crew. Lately, the heroine had started noticing girls giving her weird looks. Ralia overheard girls talking about his captain status, and how they even remembered his name as the Prince of Auraria. The girls were stoked that this dude had become a real captain, uniting all the crown princes. Looks like with all this attention and the forever blushing students around, Ray's gonna have to live like this for 3 years in the temple. One of the girls noticed the prince was sitting alone, which was kinda strange. She figured she should definitely take her shot and went over to Ray. Getting closer, she asked if it was true that the kid in front of her was the crown prince of the Aurarian Empire. Hearing him confirm it, she moved in closer. She needed to talk to this guy. Turns out her dad's Count Shirties, and she's from the Nicaean Empire. Honestly, that name and the empire it's from meant absolutely nothing to her. Not wanting to be rude, Ralia just smiled and asked what she wanted from him. The Count's daughter wasn't expecting such a blunt question, and got flustered for a sec. Then, in a shaky voice, she said she wanted to get closer to Ray. She pointed out that the prince mostly just hangs out with guys. She was super impressed that his crew calls Ralia captain. Our girl didn't know how to even respond to that kind of statement. Ray just shrugged it off, saying it doesn't really matter what people call him. The girl wouldn't let up, and Ralia was racking her brain for a way to ditch her, fast. The heroine knew her popularity was skyrocketing every day, and that was a freaking disaster. Ralia wanted to punch someone's lights out right now, specifically the guy responsible for her fame. These 4 leech-like princes were the reason she couldn't just chill quietly at the temple for 3 years. She remembered how those sleepy-eyed princes would barge into her room almost every morning. Seriously, this crew followed Ralia everywhere, never leaving her alone for a second, and calling her captain at every turn. That's what blew up her popularity with the girls. That's why Ralia woke up extra early today. She desperately needed some alone time, though total solitude was impossible, with all those love-struck stares coming her way. The other Aurarians had never seen the real Reo, but the heroine knew all about the prince's reckless side. None of that really mattered, though, since they wouldn't be compared later on. Look, at the end of the day, a girl's gotta do what she thinks is best, right? Real soon after the heroine gets back from the temple, the emperor and the crown prince are gonna get iced during a rebellion. Ralia didn't even have time to figure out what she was gonna do during the uprising, cause this girl's voice snapped her out of it. She clearly wanted to ask Ray something, but she was all shy about it. Seemed like getting whatever she wanted to ask out of her mouth was like pulling teeth. Ralia decided to give her a nudge and told her not to hold back. The girl blurted out a word, like totally by accident, then sucked in a massive gulp of air. Right after that, she rushed out a question on the exhale, loud as hell, asking if Griffith had ever mentioned her. Now that's one question the heroine definitely wasn't expecting to hear. Turns out, Griffith was engaged to this girl who was blushing like crazy. The news hit like a bomb, and now it was the main girl who was blushing like crazy. Getting a grip, Ralia retorted that nobody was talking about her, and they definitely weren't discussing girls. There's no telling how this weird conversation would have ended, but Rio overheard some familiar voices. The usual crew strolled into the cafeteria, super pissed that the captain bailed without them. This time, Kaix was the most ticked off, while Romeo still wasn't even fully awake yet. The girl was bummed that those leeches managed to get up and follow her even here. When the guys got closer, Griffith spotted a familiar girl next to the captain. The bride-to-be realized that her future husband was staring right at her right now. She instantly spun around and bolted, yelling over her shoulder that they should continue this chat another time. The blushing girl zoomed past the princes, finally jolting Romeo awake for good. Oscar was super curious about that girl who just ran past. Romeo figured it was probably the captain's girl. Kaix wasn't really buying that the girl who bolted was the captain's girlfriend. He just couldn't wrap his head around a knockout like that being into their leader. Oscar immediately started explaining to Kaix that their captain's the best, so of course he could have a girlfriend. Romeo chimed in, saying it seemed like everyone but Kaix knew how popular the captain was with the girls at the temple. The heroine could only sigh and accept the reality of her popularity and the prince's dumbness. Oscar sadly asked if it was true. Was that really the captain's girl? Looks like this question was really bothering the shyest of the crown princes. The heroine immediately replied that he couldn't be that girl's boyfriend, because that would lead to big problems. The thing is, that girl's actually engaged to Prince Griffith. Kaix was stunned. No way Griffith already has a fiancé? Griffith just casually said everyone here should be engaged by now. Romeo mumbled, totally shocked, that he didn't have one, and neither did Oscar. The main character realized the guys were seriously hung up on Griffith having a fiancé. She figured the only guys without fiancés were the ones the emperor hated. Romeo got curious. What about their leader? Does he have a fiancé? That question threw her for a loop. She had no clue how to answer that. Romeo was sure the captain definitely had a fiancé. There's no way he wouldn't. Ralia still couldn't come up with an answer, and that was starting to look suspicious. Dude was dying to know which girl could possibly snag their captain's attention. Now the whole table was hooked, wondering if the captain even had a girlfriend. Ralia had no freaking clue how to answer the crown princes, and it was super awkward. I mean, the heroine had no idea if Ray had a fiancé. The novel didn't say squat. Girl was sweating bullets that she'd screw up her answer and drastically change the future. In theory, Rio should have a fiancé, because the emperor totally doted on his son. But since Hashi got shipped off to the temple, Rio might have cut off his social life and stayed single. Ralia came up with a slick answer, saying they hadn't mentioned a fiancé yet, because he's still weak. Meanwhile, Rio had overheard his dad talking to someone about setting him up. Believe it or not, the princes bought their captain's BS answer without a second thought. But Kaix doubted the captain had called himself weak, seeing as he dragged him through the mountains. Rio explained that the situation was dire back then, and he honestly didn't know how he managed to carry Kaix. And honestly, Kaix should be thanking him for such a monumental effort to save his butt. Kaix started getting pissed, while Romeo gave the captain a real weird look. He was curious. Would Rio have saved him if Romeo had been in Kaix's place? Ralia was surprised by the question. After all, Romeo was her first friend at the temple. To reassure the blonde, the heroine confirmed that she'd have hauled him off that mountain too. Oscar immediately chimed in, asking if the captain would have dragged him out of that forest. Rio replied that Oscar was smaller than him, so he definitely would have saved him. The girl was completely satisfied with her answer. Seeing Oscar all happy, the kid was stoked he wasn't going to get dumped in the mountains with the wolves. Right then, Oscar suddenly seemed like a little fairy to her again. She thought Oscar had no business being that cute. And how was he even older than her? Ralia figured she probably just felt like Oscar was a younger brother to her. Noticing they had the same hair color, she decided to speak her mind. She thought strangers might think she and Oscar were siblings. Those words were both unexpected and super nice for the kid to hear. Kaix wasn't thrilled that these two were now acting like big and little brother. Thoughts like that, according to Kaix, could lead to a national bloodbath. Romeo thought their captain had definitely said way too much this time. Hearing the Crown Prince's reactions, she figured she'd gone overboard. But Oscar was stoked. Just then, the girl keyed in on something important. Griffith had been sitting there silently the whole time, not saying a damn word. That dude was always the quietest one in their crew anyway. She thought the Crown Prince looked like a lost puppy right now. He tags along with them, but he's always so aloof and distant. It was getting on Ralia's nerves. She needed to fix Griffith's position in their group, like, as soon as possible. She turned to the kid, who clearly wasn't expecting her to even notice him. She told him she'd have pulled him out of the woods, too, if he'd been in Kaix's place. The kid was surprised by that, even though he was trying to play it cool. After that, Ralia added, Griffith definitely wouldn't whine about being carried. But before Griffith could even say anything, Kaix blew up, pissed off about the complaining comment. Once that whole mess with Kaix was over, she noticed Griffith's face had softened. Griffith just said that, he hadn't actually asked to be carried. Ralia quickly changed the subject and suggested they eat. Romeo couldn't figure out why the captain wanted to eat, especially since he'd just eaten before coming here. The guys could never understand why the captain was always eating so much and how he managed to put it all away. The rest of the day went by peacefully. While everyone was sleeping soundly, Oscar was haunted by that nightmare again. He woke up with a jolt, the fear still gripping him. The prince couldn't calm down or even catch his breath. The kid covered his face, trying to stop the trembling inside. He kept replaying the captain's words in his head, that everything was okay and he was safe. That helped Oscar calm down a little, but he couldn't sleep anymore. In total silence, he hugged himself, quietly crying, begging his captain for help. But the captain was too far away to hear. The next day was a day off, so the guys were throwing around ideas for the day. Romeo suggested going for a walk outside the temple, since they're always stuck here inside these four walls. Kaix figured Romeo was suggesting a walk in the garden, but he was dead wrong. Romeo actually wanted to hit up the market district, on neutral ground behind the temple. Griffith pointed out that even though it's pretty far from the temple, it'd be worth checking out. The heroine wasn't sure the priests would let them all go out into the city like that. Looks like Romeo already had a plan cooking. He pointed out the guys kept quiet about the mountain attack, so the temple owes them their reputation. Romeo's gonna cash in on that, since now they've got a reason to ask the temple for anything. Blondie figured they'd get released and have guards assigned for protection. The Crown Prince's proposal vibed with our girl, since she hadn't been anywhere but the tower and the temple. So, as captain, she gave her okay. Everyone would go together. Hearing that, Oscar's face totally changed. He definitely wasn't feeling that idea. The kid said in a shaky voice that he wanted to stay at the temple. Then he added he was super sleepy, so the others should go without him. After that, he got up and just beelined for the common room exit. The heroine understood why the prince didn't want to leave the temple grounds. She knew Oscar always freaked out when he was in crowded places. She had to come up with something, quick, so the kid wouldn't feel abandoned. An idea of how to help Oscar formed fast. Now she just had to make it happen. Romeo was pissed. He couldn't get why Oscar was turning down such an awesome chance to ditch the temple. The heroine cut the blonde off, saying if they were going, it was right now. The blonde didn't get why Rio was suddenly in such a rush to leave, especially since Oscar wasn't going. Truth was, Romeo was worried about the kid. He didn't want to leave him alone either. Seeing the blonde's reaction, Ralia was even more convinced Romeo was actually a great guy. It wasn't long before the group made it to the shopping district. Holy crap, there are a ton of people here. Ralia hasn't seen a crowd like this since she got zapped over. It kinda threw her for a loop at first. She didn't even know where to go. Romeo pointed out that this place was nothing compared to the Roseberry shopping district. Kaix wasn't thrilled either, but Griffith said at least it's clean here. All around them, they could hear people whispering about the visiting nobles. One of their guards told the princes to stick close to the group. Ralia thanked the guard for the heads up and said they'd be careful. The temple assigned 5 knights as guards, and they were only allowed to wander around the area closest to the temple. The girl started thinking. She wanted to find something special here. While searching, our hero scanned the shop windows and finally spotted a place that looked promising. The princes wanted to know where their captain was marching off to in such a hurry. Seeing their leader heading for a doll display, they were totally thrown for a loop. Meanwhile, the girl, followed by the whole crew, walked right into the toy store. The shopkeeper in the store immediately greeted the customers. When the knights filed in after the kids, the seller started to freak out a little. Seeing the knights were just escorts, the shop owner figured he had some royal kids on his hands. The knights apologized to the guy for the unexpected visit and calmed him down. Ralia walked up to the counter where the toy bunnies were. She picked one up, knowing full well it might look suspicious. But the bunny was just so damn cute, she couldn't take her eyes off it. Romeo couldn't believe the captain was serious about buying a doll here. Dolls are for girls, right? Looking kinda pissed, Rio shot back that boys can totally love dolls too. Romeo wasn't gonna argue, but Ralia realized she was flat broke for toys. Turns out, Kaix and Romeo were also rocking empty pockets. Romeo just couldn't wrap his head around princes needing to carry around, like, actual cash. Holding out hope, Ralia asked the last guy in their crew. Lucky for them, Griffith had the dough, making Rio call him the most reliable dude, stoked. Griffith even offered that Rio could grab a second doll if he wanted. The prince would cover it. Griffith seemed a little awkward from the captain's praise, and just told them to hurry up and pick. Ralia instantly grabbed another bunny, just like the first, but in a different color. So, in the original doll story, there were two parts, and one of them was about Oscar when he was all grown up. Oscar was head over heels for the main girl, but he confessed way too late. She turned the prince down and gave him a doll as a keepsake. She told him it was her absolute favorite doll, so she wanted to give it to Oscar as a thank you. Truth is, Juliana was constantly getting toys, and she had so many she was just giving them away to everyone. Even so, that doll became super special to the prince. It actually helped Oscar get rid of a nightmare that had been haunting him his whole life. Obviously, this bunny won't have the same effect as the heroine's gift, but Ralia was hoping the toy would help Oscar. Griffith, unlike the others, immediately figured out the second bunny was bought for Oscar. Kaix and Romeo still had no clue why the captain needed two identical dolls. After hearing about Oscar, Kaix bugged Griffith for cash so he could buy a bunny for himself too. But Griffith shot down both Kaix and Romeo's requests right away. The princes were super bummed about the rejection and called Griffith a total jerk. They were hoping that insult would work on the only guy who actually had cash on him. Romeo and Kaix were laser beaming him with their eyes, standing in dead silence until he caved. Finally getting the yes, they bolted off to pick out their own dolls. The main character was thinking to herself, yet again, that things were going way off the rails. Even so, she felt all warm and fuzzy inside, knowing she'd be getting her own doll. She felt happy, because now she had something that was hers, and it connected her to the guys. The girl didn't even get why she was so stoked, since she just wanted to help Oscar at first. Maybe it was because Ralia, her character, had always dreamed of having her own doll. For some reason, the girl felt like as long as she had that doll, nothing bad could happen to her. The second time dolls popped up, it was all about Ralia. Now, the main character in the novel, Juliana, was loved by pretty much everyone in the story, but she grew up in a seriously messed up situation. Her dad was constantly abusing her. It would have gone on forever if someone hadn't stepped in and put a stop to it. And that someone was the guy everyone thought was dead. His name was Perseus Auraria, and he used to be the Emperor of Auraria. The Emperor got played by his younger brother, and ended up losing his wife and getting kicked off the throne. After that, he bounced with the twin princes and went into hiding for a long time. Juliana's mom ended up marrying Perseus, and together they started plotting to get his throne back. I guess you could say it was a marriage of convenience, and Juliana became the Emperor's adopted daughter. Perseus got his old allies together and overthrew his younger brother 10 years after losing the throne. By then, the real Rio had already been killed by his own men. The Emperor had nothing to do with it. Juliana, now a princess in the palace, was loving her new fairy tale life and wanted to get closer to Perseus. Perseus was like a real father to her, so she was always drawn to him. But one day, that led to a pretty messed up situation. Perseus pushed her away, and she fell, completely freaked out by the sudden move. The Emperor didn't mean to scare her, but he totally did. He turned around too fast and ended up hitting her arm. That injury caused some serious emotional damage to both Juliana and Perseus. After that whole thing, Juliana just figured her new dad hated her guts. So, Perseus tries to fix things by buying her this massive toy. He hands it over, apologizes, and explains he's just not used to being touched. After giving her the teddy bear, Perseus asked Juliana to forgive him. The little girl was quick to accept her dad's apology and calmed right down. She was relieved to know her dad didn't hate her, and that toy became something really special to her. Seeing how happy the big bear made her, Perseus was seeing Juliana in a whole new light. Same goes for her brothers. They were watching from a distance and totally fell for their little sister. From then on, the brothers were constantly showering her with all kinds of toys. Meanwhile, Ralia's MIA from the story, because she doesn't really affect anything, being a minor character. She lived in a tower where even sunlight barely reached. The emperor and his advisors couldn't figure out what to do with the kid of the guy who'd dethroned Perseus. Some wanted to kill Ralia as a potential threat to the throne. Others wanted to marry her off for political gain. At some point, all this chatter just wore the emperor down after he returned. He said he didn't want to hear another word about the kid, but allowed her to live in the distant tower. He didn't even care that his sister's daughter was starving all this time. He justified it to himself by saying Ralia's mother was a villain who tortured Perseus's late wife, Elizabeth. So Juliana had everything, and she was still a bright and kind girl. Ralia, on the other hand, was a skinny, worn-down kid who never had anything. The girl didn't even have the energy to hate, because all she ever felt was weakness and hunger. Ralia hit the woods outside the castle, hunting for fruit, just to keep from starving. She was your run-of-the-mill background character. Nothing special about her. That day would have been totally forgettable if she hadn't run into Juliana in the forest. Juliana had left a picnic basket full of grub in a clearing. The girl bolted towards that basket, ready to grab whatever was inside. Peeking in, Ralia saw a ton of cookies and some fruit. Jackpot. She knew swiping someone else's food could get her in serious trouble, but hunger won out, and she reached for a cookie. She started scarfing them down, one after another, like there was no tomorrow. Then, out of nowhere, she heard a voice, and pure terror gripped her. Ralia didn't even notice Juliana was sleeping peacefully next to the basket at first. The princess was curled up, hugging a teddy bear. When Ralia saw the princess, she freaked out for a second, but the fear went away quick. Something else grabbed her attention, and she totally forgot about the food. Ralia suddenly had this crazy urge to take the teddy bear the girl was sleeping with. She didn't even realize how badly she wanted that toy, like she needed to have it no matter what. She knew it was wrong, but her hand was already reaching for it. A split second later, the bear was in the hands of our then minor character. She just wanted to hold the doll close, to feel even a little bit of warmth and love, even for a second. Ralia stood there hugging the doll, completely stuck on what to do next. So, she hesitated and took a few steps back. Then, the girl spun around and bolted. Ralia didn't get far before two guys yelled out to her. Seeing who it was, she knew she was in deep trouble. The twins thought the thief should be ashamed for stealing the princess's doll. One of the twins froze when he saw the thief's face. He realized it was his aunt's daughter, the woman who tortured his mother. The loud voices woke Juliana, and she saw Ralia holding her doll. The brothers wouldn't let up. They thought the girl committed a mortal sin. Juliana told her brothers to chill and not be so arrogant with the girl. Juliana, looking at Ralia, introduced herself and said that doll was really precious to her. So the princess really wanted that doll back. Ralia felt ashamed of what she did. She knew she messed up big time. She walked up to Juliana and handed her the stuffed bear. The girl sincerely thanked her for returning her favorite toy. The brothers thought that wasn't enough, so they weren't letting Ralia off the hook that easy. They demanded that she get over there, get on her knees, and beg for forgiveness. One of the guys told Juliana to hang in there, saying she's a princess and needs to be tough on thieves. The girl knew she couldn't just ignore such blatant theft. Hearing the princess agree, the brothers turned back to the thief. One of them straight up said she had to bow her head and forced her to do it. Then he goes, "She's got to apologize like that 100 times. The girl felt even more worthless than before, like she was nothing. She started doing what they told her, tears streaming down her face. Every single time, she bowed and begged her royal highness for forgiveness. Ralia didn't even get to 100 apologies before the emperor showed up. The kids were stoked to see their dad, who's usually busy as hell. He scooped up his little girl and carried her back to the castle. Dinner time was coming up. The brothers called their dad a cheater, because they were supposed to carry her today. Ralia stopped bowing and just stared at the emperor, not saying a word. The guy just stared back at her, his face totally unreadable. Then he turned on his heel and headed back into the castle. The girl was left alone in the woods with her thoughts and this crushing loneliness. All these characters, even Ralia's actions, were supposed to be just props in the story. But this new Ralia, she's a million miles away from the book version. Meanwhile, the prince crew got back from the city and beelined straight for Oscar. The kid was trying to hide how bummed he was, but he wasn't doing a great job. Ralia didn't waste any time and immediately decided to give Oscar his gift. He took the rabbit, still completely clueless about what just happened. Ray explained he wanted to give Oscar a present, and the crown prince was super surprised. The captain mentioned that this doll can suck up other people's blues. The princes figured their leader was spouting nonsense again, like he was some little kid. Ralia was shocked at what the guys were thinking, so she called them out, since they all bought the same damn doll. That was a bullseye, and the guys had no comeback. Romeo was stoked that they all had matching dolls now. Ralia remembered how Romeo and Kaix's kids whined in the shop. saying they needed the exact same dolls. Romeo tried to explain to the captain that they were all the same age, so calling them kids wasn't cool. After that, the day went on as usual, and everyone went to bed safe and sound that night. Ralia also went to bed, but she just couldn't fall asleep. She put the bunny right next to her and stared at it real hard. The girl scooted the bunny closer to herself. At that moment, she was super happy, because now she had her own rabbit. And this wasn't some stolen or found thing, and nobody could take it from her. She remembered all the guys had bunnies now. These toys were bringing the princess closer. Now, the girl felt like she wouldn't be jealous of Juliana's doll anymore. Another piece of good news was the priest set up another bed in Ray's room. That'll help the guys get more sleep, since Romeo will be less wild in his sleep. Romeo thought that was overkill. He'd only kicked someone a couple times and fallen off the bed. Romeo just ended up saying they should stop talking about him and go to sleep already. A strong wind blew outside. Looks like a heavy rain's coming soon. Griffith killed the lights while Oscar looked lost in thought. Before long, all the crown princes were tucked in for the night. At some point, Romeo, who always tossed and turned, ended up on the edge of the bed again. A huge lightning strike sent the blonde flying right off the mattress. The fall hurt like hell and completely woke up the crown prince. A few seconds later, the blonde heard faint sounds, like someone crying. Romeo realized the sounds were coming from Oscar, who was completely covered by his blanket. Trying not to wake anyone, Romeo crept towards the captain's bed in the dark. The boy gently started calling for Ray, trying not to wake the others or scare the leader. He managed to wake Ralia up fast, though Romeo did end up giving her a fright. Romeo said they're having problems with Oscar again. He clarified that Oscar seems to be having another attack. Romeo said the kid can't breathe right, and he's gonna call the priests. Ralia didn't think they needed priests and rushed to the boys' room. Griffith and Kaix were already awake too, standing by Oscar's bed with a lamp. The girl felt uneasy when she saw Oscar's condition. He'd gotten out of bed and was covering his ears, shaking like crazy. The heroine ran to the kid and started calling his name, trying to snap him out of it. Ralia touched his face and told him that she was there. Oscar reacted to the girl's voice, but his eyes were still empty. She started calming him down, kept saying everything was going to be all right. It worked, and the kid completely focused on his friend. The heroine gave Oscar props, told him he was doing a great job. The girl waited for the guy to conquer his fear and chill out. Turns out, the rain triggered the attack. Oscar tried to explain it. He was searching for the right words. You could tell it was tough for him to talk about. Oscar said his mom died on a rainy day. Ralia tried to soothe him, kept saying rain is just rain. The girl tucked the prince into bed and reassured him nothing bad was going to happen now. Ralia wasn't expecting a miracle cure, but she was hoping for a little more progress. She glanced at the toy lying next to the pillow. The heroine placed the bunny right next to Oscar. Ralia told him that whenever he felt scared or anxious, there was one thing he had to remember. He just needed to grab the toy and talk to it like it was Ray in front of him. The boy hugged the toy closer and started to calm down. Ralia was relieved that she'd managed to stop Oscar's attack. After that, the heroine remembered they weren't exactly alone in the room. The other crown princes were watching her intently. Kaix asked Ray if Oscar was possessed by a demon. Oscar pretended he didn't understand what they were talking about, and Ralia suddenly wanted to punch Kaix. She walked right up to him and pinched his cheek for having such stupid thoughts. Griffith asked the leader why Oscar was acting so weird if he wasn't possessed by a demon. The girl realized she needed to lay everything out for these two princes. She was pretty chill though, since it wasn't the first time she'd had to explain this. She agreed to tell Kaix and Griffith what was really going on with Oscar. Ralia mentioned that she had already explained everything about Oscar to Romeo once. While Ray was explaining why Oscar wasn't possessed, the kid was just chilling, hugging a bunny. Ralia explained in detail that what's happening to Oscar is a result of trauma. Then she added that everyone's afraid of something, even if it's just one thing. Griffith asked what their leader was most afraid of. The girl thought that she was most afraid of hunger, but that answer would be super weird. So, she said what she feared most was famine sweeping through the empire. Kaix called it bull, but Griffith was clearly digging the captain's answer. Oscar's biggest fear is his dad, and Romeo's scared of demons. Griffith claimed he wasn't afraid of anything, but Ralia thought he'd just never admit his fears. Kaix was suspiciously quiet, so Ray asked him why he was being so silent. The prince proudly declared there wasn't anything in the world he feared, because he didn't even flinch at the wolves. Out of nowhere, Oscar pipes up, saying he knows what Kaix is afraid of. Holding a rabbit, the kid says Kaix is scared of girls. Oscar said he saw Kaix freak out and run the last time a girl tried to talk to him. That made Kaix instantly turn red and start yelling that never happened. He demanded Oscar take back what he said, and the guys had to hold the crown prince back before he blew a gasket. Just when Kaix was about to lose it, the captain suddenly distracted everyone. Ray was sitting off to the side, cracking up. The whole brawl looked hilarious from where he was sitting. That booming laughter instantly cooled Kaix down, and Romeo and Griffith breathed a sigh of relief. Kaix thought the captain shouldn't be laughing that loud, but the captain couldn't stop. He thought it was too funny. Romeo was glad things had wrapped up like that after all the talk about fears, even though the friends still didn't learn what Griffith and Kaix were actually afraid of. Romeo suggested they talk about what each of them liked instead. Ralia liked that idea. Talking about your favorite stuff is way better than talking about fears. The guys started thinking, and it turned out that even that question wasn't so easy to answer. Each of them tried to pinpoint the most joyful thing in their life. So the princes stayed up all night, hashing out what they liked and didn't like, laughing and totally ignoring the storm raging outside. That day marked a major strengthening of the bond between the 5 princes. The guys started celebrating each other's birthdays and each empire's holidays together. The seasons flew by in all this chaos, and now the princes could call each other true friends. 2 years have passed since that conversation. Rio was pulled from his thoughts by a girl asking him to accept a letter. Ralia accepted the letter with dignity, as befits a prince. He looked at the girl, thanked her, and promised to keep the letter safe. The girl flushed with excitement, just like her friends standing a little behind her. The girls watched the prince walk away, thinking he seemed like a really nice guy. Rio got back to his room and saw about 20 letters piled up on his desk. And now there was yet another one from some new admirer. The guys noticed their captain had gotten another letter. Kaix was wondering how the leader wasn't completely sick of all the attention. The guys had just finished their fencing lessons, and Kaix was starving. He was working so hard in class that he started eating almost as much as Ray. Griffith said Romeo and Oscar were still in the showers, but should be here soon. A few minutes later, the other crown princes finally showed up in their shared room. Romeo was surprised the captain was back from the library so fast. Ralia was like, yeah, she knocked out all her stuff real quick. Out of nowhere, Oscar decides to hand Ray a letter. Ralia's freaking out, thinking the dude's about to confess, but turns out the priest asked him to deliver it. Girl knew instantly who it was from, and her good mood just vanished. She silently rips open the envelope and zones in on what it says. First question, has Ralia gotten any taller? Talk about a sore spot, because everyone here's shot up in the last 3 years. Even Oscar's taller than her now. She thinks being the shortest is a major hit to her rep as captain. Her mood totally tanked, and she tells everyone to change fast and head to lunch. Everyone was starving after training, so nobody argued with that. The girl unfolded the letter completely, confirming it was from Emperor Ridius of the Aurarian Empire. She began to meticulously read the contents of the pages. With each new line, fear and despair consumed her more and more. A little while later, the whole group was waiting for the captain so they could finally get some lunch. Ray shot the guys a displeased, irritated look and didn't say a word. After that, the girl turned around and headed back towards the living quarters. The guys didn't understand why the captain was acting like this, so Kaix decided to approach him. He caught up to Ray and, putting his hand on his shoulder, asked where he was going. The girl spun around sharply and knocked her friend's hand off her shoulder. After that, Ray told them to stop bothering her. This time, the whole company was freaking out, especially Oscar. He asked if there was anything they could do to help Ralia. Ray just told Oscar to shut his trap and not talk to him again. Romeo tried to explain they were all super worried about the captain. Griffith added that Ray had never acted like this, ever. The girl knew it herself, but she was having a hard time dealing with the emotions crashing down on her. She started shaking from the pressure, but just snapped that the guys didn't know anything about her. After that, she stormed off, trying to get away and be alone as fast as possible. Everyone stood there stunned by the captain's sudden change. Nobody said another word. Getting to her room, Ralia slammed the door shut and leaned against it. A second later, she finally caught her breath and backed away from the door. She walked over to the couch and knelt down beside it, trying to calm herself. The girl knew the situation was about as bad as it could get right now. Ralia didn't know what to do or how to act anymore. Honestly, there wasn't anything in that letter from the Emperor that she didn't already know or that was particularly special. But one single sentence was enough to set her off. It said she shouldn't forget her duty and to behave herself. The warning didn't really make sense, since the magic of silence prevents her from revealing the real Rio. The girl thought about how much she'd talked with the princes over the last 2 years, but she never had a single chance to tell them the truth about herself. The heroine knew a year after they parted ways, the princes would get a letter about Ryo's death. At first, Ralia even wanted that moment to come as soon as possible, just so she wouldn't have to see those troublemakers anymore. But as time went on, the bond between her and the princes got closer and closer. The time they spent together became the happiest time of her life. She didn't want it to end, and she started to forget that she was just a fake. The heroine started thinking about how the boys would feel when they got the letter about her death. She could roughly imagine how each of them would react to their captain's death. Rio's passing would affect each of them and leave a permanent scar on their hearts. She wished she could lessen their pain, but there was absolutely nothing she could do. That's why Ralia came up with the idea to screw up her relationships with the princes before they left the temple. She was still lost in her own thoughts and didn't even notice the princes had walked into her room. In a firm voice, she told them she'd ask them not to barge into her room anymore. Romeo said it was dumb to think they'd just pretend everything was okay. She yelled at Romeo to shut his mouth and just leave her alone. Then Oscar, sounding unsure, chimed in, saying their captain was acting really weird. Romeo begged Ray to tell them what was wrong, saying they'd try to help. Kaix also wanted to know what was going on with their leader and why Ray wouldn't explain anything. Griffith thought Ray was deliberately and suddenly ruining their relationship. Oscar added hesitantly that Ray was the one who taught them to share their problems. That was hard to argue with, so Ray just tried to pretend he didn't hear them. Oscar walked up to the leader and gently took his hands, just like the captain used to calm little Oscar down. The prince reminded him again that Rio could always count on his friends. After hearing those words, Ralia just couldn't hold back the storm of emotions inside her anymore. Oscar saw the heroine's face and was at a loss, not knowing how to react to that. But the crown prince still didn't let go of her hands, hoping she'd at least feel his support that way. The girl found the strength to look at Oscar, her whole face already covered in tears. Ralia decided that she really needed to explain something, somehow, to her friends. She gathered her thoughts and started to speak, but her voice trembled, betraying her. She couldn't even get a single sentence out before the tears started flowing even harder. Still, she managed to say that she didn't want the guys to be sad if she died one day. None of the crown princes expected an answer like that. Romeo had to double-check what the captain was actually trying to tell them. He figured the captain was bummed about them splitting up soon, or maybe just had a bad dream. Kaix pointed out that they'd all see each other again soon anyway, even if they parted ways in the near future. According to the book, the Mark-Bearers are destined to team up and take on a dragon. Kaix vowed he'd do everything he could to protect the captain on that quest. Rio quietly replied that he probably wouldn't be able to join their dragon-slaying squad. The guy didn't bother explaining that he was supposed to be dead before that even happened. The girl decided she needed to finish what she started explaining. Ralia shared that someone was after his father's throne, which meant the crown prince was in danger. So, the girl finished up by saying that with her weak body and the threats to life in the Empire, the princes better be ready for the fact that Rio wasn't gonna become a dragon hunter. After that, she added that the guys needed to be extra careful and come back alive. All of them. Suddenly, Ralia heard a clear and loud "no," which totally surprised her. It was Oscar, already standing there crying too. But his voice was full of conviction when he said he didn't want the captain to die. Oscar added that he hated this, and Ralia had never seen him like that before. But just seconds later, Oscar's resolve crumbled, and he was begging the captain through tears not to die. The other princes started trying to calm Oscar down. They definitely didn't want to be stuck with two crying princes. But after those words, Ralia finally started to feel at ease. She looked at the more mature Oscar, remembering what would happen to him in the future. One day, he'd get his hands on a demon sword and become immortal. She watched Kaix, already acting all brave, even when he didn't need to. He'll go down in history as the mercenary king, wielding a sword nobody else can even lift. Griffith unlocked his powers way earlier than the story was supposed to allow. The prince will become a sacred sword wielder, with powers way beyond even the holiest Kreutz. And Oscar, always defiant and never satisfied, he's going to be remembered too. He'll get the title of Word Mage, mastering the heart of a dragon, and becoming the youngest guy ever to build a magic tower. And then there was her, Ralia, surrounded by all these legends, but just full of lies and with nothing going for her. She felt a huge surge of pride, just for being friends with these future heroes. But mixed in with that pride, she also felt this sharp, stabbing pain. It sucked knowing she was the one destined to get these loyal friends, only to lose them all. The girl added that one day, each of them would be part of something legendary. So on the day she's gone, they shouldn't be sad. The next morning, Romeo and the guys showed up early to get the captain. Ray took forever to open up, so the guys asked if their leader was crying again. Those comments only made Ralia even angrier. It pissed her off that the guys were now constantly teasing her about bursting into tears at any second. The girl honestly didn't know how she could face them after yesterday's scene. She was so embarrassed, but she still figured she did the right thing, telling them about Ray's possible death. But because of those tears, Kaix started calling her Crybaby Rio. Ralia wanted to kill the guy. After lying around for a while longer, she figured that moping around wasn't going to solve anything. So, the girl figured she had about 6 months left to live at the temple. That meant she was going to pack as many awesome memories as she could into that time. Romeo pointed out it was Griffith's birthday, so the captain couldn't be left alone all day. Ralia plopped the doll on the bed and told the princes she was asleep, so she didn't hear them. Griffith was in for a ton of birthday wishes from his buddies and a massive cake that night. Each of the princes had cooked up a letter as a gift. Giving letters for birthdays was basically tradition for the temple students now. Kaix was bummed they couldn't sneak into town anymore to buy birthday presents. Oscar and Ralia still couldn't figure out how they pulled that off last time, all thanks to Romeo. Romeo was like, "Hey, that whole thing was the captain's idea. Don't pin it all on me." And hey, today's the last day Ray gets to treat Romeo like dirt, because Romeo just pulled off something Ray's gonna be thanking him for a long time. The heroine had no idea what Romeo was so smug about, but Oscar remembered someone else's birthday was tomorrow, someone super important to their captain. Kaix also remembered they celebrated another birthday last year. They threw a party, but never actually figured out whose it was. Romeo guessed the captain was talking about his girlfriend's birthday. Ray snapped at Romeo, saying that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard him say. The heroine tried to explain that it was just a really important person in her life. Insecure Oscar immediately jumped to the wrong conclusion and figured this someone was more important than them, his friends. "Whoa there, buddy," she cut him off. "You're way off base." She didn't know how to break the truth to them, but she knew they deserved an answer. Ralia explained that this person was super close to her, and they'd known each other since they were kids. She desperately wanted to tell Oscar the whole truth, but it would literally kill the girl because of a magic oath. She looked at Oscar and told him they shouldn't let it get them down. Ralia then added that Oscar was a really important friend to her too. The friends finally got the party started. The cake was cut, and the celebration was officially underway. Romeo handed out slices of cake to everyone. Somehow, he'd taken on that responsibility a while back. Ralia focused on enjoying the party and the cake as much as possible. For a split second, she wondered if all this fun would just vanish the second she went back home. The girl really didn't want to go back to the Empire, but time just kept ticking. All alone, she figured out that how she spent her remaining time in the temple really mattered. But thinking about the future was key too. She had to dodge dying young. She needed to stay far away from that pond and close to the castle exit, so she could make a run for it. Sadly, the real problems, like the ex-emperor's comeback, were way beyond Ralia's control. She was also sweating about her friends getting caught up in that dragon fight. That's the battle where Kaix is gonna get seriously messed up. He'll slice through the dragon's scales with his sword, but he'll be right in the monster's line of fire. Eventually, Kaix will manage to land a hit on the dragon. That dragon's gonna fight back like crazy, unleashing one deadly attack after another on him. But Kaix will stand his ground to the bitter end, landing a fatal blow on the dragon with his sword, which will ultimately help restore peace. Kaix will have to pay for that peace with his life. His skin and bones were melted, and if it weren't for Griffith's divine power, Kaix wouldn't have made it back alive. Griffith managed to heal most of his friend's wounds, but not all of them. He couldn't restore his eyes. For years, the people of the Asgardian Empire had lived under the tyranny of the Emperor, dreaming of a new ruler. They hoped that after the victory over the dragon, Kaix would take the throne. But when they saw him, they became afraid of the prince of their empire. Kaix's eyes were completely different now. The golden color of eyes had always been a symbol of Asgardian power, and it was believed that such eyes could see everything hidden. These very golden eyes were what the heroine remembered from her time in the temple. After Kaix went blind, his eyes got this weird, mystical glow, and people started giving him a wide berth. They thought Kaix was some cursed dragon. The dude wasn't looking for a handout, and he didn't take the rejection too hard, but he did start hiding his eyes. The main character didn't find Kaix's eyes scary at all, and was ready to give him some comfort. Juliana believed his eyes had saved the world, and that she didn't think he was cursed. Those words melted the hero's heart, and he became just another fish in Juliana's pond. But love didn't happen between them in the end, and the hero went back to wandering the world. And just like that, he lost everything, from his hand and eyesight to love and his own country. Reading the book, the girl couldn't understand how anyone could treat the hero like that. And now, as Ralia, she'll never forget when he used to smile like a total goofball. This guy's got a terrible, unimaginable future ahead of him, and the heroine really wants to stop it. But in the original story, there wasn't a single chance to change that kid's fate, because he was the only one who could pierce the dragon's scales and land the killing blow. He'd tell his buddies, like, even if he knew what was coming, there was jack he could do about it. This girl had already tried to find a way out a bunch of times, but still couldn't see one. What sucked even more was the thought that Ralia couldn't even fully control her own body right now. It was messed up that her character had zero magic powers. At least then she could have helped, if not Kaix, then herself. But the girl didn't feel even a drop of mana inside her. Those who have it can build it up in their bodies and train. People who infused mana into weapons were called aura masters. Those who used mana for their own techniques were called mages. The girl was pissed that she got stuck in this novel, but didn't even get a couple of spells as a bonus. She was also kicking herself for knowing absolutely squat about alchemy, even though alchemy was considered some heretical power in this world and strictly forbidden. Rumor had it, the Philosopher's Stone could grant any wish you could dream up. Legendary elixirs could heal any injury, cure any disease, and even cheat death itself. Thing is, neither the stone nor the elixir had ever actually been created in this world, but you could sell potions for illnesses on the black market, and Ralia figured she could make some cash that way. And if she got lucky, maybe she could even restore Kaix's eyes. But that was just wishful thinking. After all, she had 0 powers, and realistically, she was probably gonna starve to death in this tower. The heroine wondered if she should just make a run for it when the rebellion kicked off at the castle. Or maybe she could beg Juliana to save her, seeing as she's the main character of the novel. If Ralia tells that girl she's hungry, there's no way she'll refuse her. Juliana would probably drag over a whole basket of food and help her escape. But if the heroine runs into the Emperor or one of his brothers, it's pretty much instant death. The girl was facing a tough choice, and a lot was riding on it. A few seconds later, Ralia had a brilliant idea. She remembered there was a cabin in the woods near the tower, Elizabeth's secret hideout. Her mother used to do all sorts of magical research there. There'd probably be a bunch of useful stuff in the cabin, and emergency rations, enchanted with magic to keep them fresh. In the book, Perseus gives that cabin to Juliana when he sees she has magical abilities, and remembers his dead wife right away. The girl decided she could grab some food there if she could get to the cabin before Juliana did. All I gotta do is sneak into this shelter and swipe some food without getting caught. And while I'm at it, I gotta grab Mom's magic gadgets too. Those gadgets will help her escape the palace, because if she stays, she's got 0 future. She has to try, even if it's dangerous and makes her a thief. With those thoughts swirling, she went to sleep, hugging her stuffed bunny tight. She decided she'd be okay, even if she had to do it all alone. Clutching the rabbit, she promised herself she'd find her own way to survive, no matter what. The next day, Romeo handed each of the princes a strange-looking feather. He explained they were magic feathers, so they could communicate with each other. Then Romeo showed them how his own feather worked, demonstrating it himself. Right then and there, a scroll popped up in front of each of the princes, out of nowhere. Nobody had ever seen magic like this before, not even Griffith or Kaix. They unrolled the scrolls and saw a message written by Romeo. The blondie explained that when one of them writes, the letters will show up for everyone at the same time. Romeo added that the magic will keep working as long as the magic crystal is in the quill. Turns out, that's what Romeo was talking about yesterday when he hinted we'd all be praising him for his genius. Ralia was stoked, knowing she could message her friends until the moment Rio dies. The blonde finished showing off his surprise and suggested they go eat cake. Kaix wasn't thrilled they were having cake 2 days in a row. The candles were lit, and all the guys wished a happy birthday to some unknown person, a close friend of the captain. The guys were waiting for the leader to blow out the candles, but Ray wasn't rushing it. After a beat, the captain carefully snuffed them out. Nobody noticed, but Ray's face looked more sad than happy at that moment. But the deed was done, and it was time to cut the cake for everyone. The boys clapped and cheered, congratulating the captain with all their hearts. When Kaix saw the leader's face, he got scared they'd done something wrong, because it looked like their leader was about to burst into tears again. Lately, Kaix couldn't figure out Rayo's mood swings, and Oscar thought something happened to Ralia again. The girl wiped away her tears and said she was fine, and they didn't need to worry. Romeo reached for a handkerchief, thinking to himself that the captain really needed to get his own already. Those were tears of joy, because the princes decided to celebrate the birthday of someone they didn't even know. Because today wasn't Ray's birthday, it was actually Ralia's, a minor character in the novel. Wiping away her tears, the girl thanked everyone for the birthday wishes. The boys still didn't get why their leader had started crying again. Romeo felt bad, but he didn't know how to help the captain with her emotions. Ralia thought about how she'd probably spend her next birthday all alone again. One of the prince's voices snapped the heroine out of her thoughts. They wanted to know more about whose birthday they were celebrating this year. Romeo guessed it was someone Ralia would never be able to see again. The blonde suggested that maybe they were celebrating Ray's mother's birthday. After that, Kaix realized this might explain the tears on the captain's face. Griffith and Oscar were silent, but a shadow of sadness crossed their faces too. Seeing the guys all bummed out, the girl immediately blurted out that it wasn't his mom's birthday. A split second later, the girl remembered that each of the princes had already lost their mothers. Oscar's own father murdered his mother a few years back. Kaix lost both his parents almost right after he was born. Griffith knew nothing about his birth mother, and his stepmother hated him. Romeo's mother committed suicide right in front of him. Come to think of it, Ralia's mother had a pretty tragic fate as well. The girl decided that no negativity or gloom was going to ruin today, so she got comfortable on the couch and armed herself with a fork. She went to town on that not-quite-cut cake. A second later, she ripped out a huge chunk and started shoveling it down. The guys started complaining, and Oscar was getting worried about the captain again. With her mouth full, Ray mumbled that if they didn't start eating the cake, she'd devour the whole thing herself. The guys knew the captain was capable of it, so they dove into the cake. That evening, the sunset was insanely beautiful, and there wasn't a breath of wind. Kaix snidely remarked that the captain looked like she was about to burst into tears again. Romeo resignedly reached for a tissue, but it turned out Oscar was carrying one for the captain too. Ralia smacked Kaix and Romeo upside the head to get them to stop clowning around about her constant crying. After that, Kaix asked if the captain was seriously done with crying. The kid pointed out the leader's been bawling his eyes out any chance he gets lately. Ralia, looking annoyed, shot back that she wasn't crying right now and wasn't planning on it. And honestly, Ralia decided she was never gonna cry again. Then she added that they didn't have much time left together, so wasting that time on tears would be a total waste. The girl wanted to cram in a bunch of cool stuff with the princes while she could. She wanted to have fun and laugh until she physically couldn't anymore. Ray asked that the guys remember her happy smile, not her tear-stained face. She also wanted the guys to smile as much as possible so she could remember them happy. Turns out, all that time at summer camp was the happiest the heroine had ever been. But then the day came when they all had to split up and go back to their own empires. One of the attendants walked into the prince's room and announced his carriage had arrived. Ralia had to steel herself after hearing that. The worst part of her life was about to begin. She put on a calm face and replied that she'd be ready soon. When she came out, she saw carriages were already waiting for each of the princes. She wanted to leave on a happy note, but the tears came flooding back. Kaix pointed out they'd see each other again in a few years and told her to stop crying. A blubbering Oscar begged her to write letters all the time. Griffith, looking bummed, quietly said he'd miss the captain. Romeo was like, "Cut the waterworks already, this vibe is killing me." His words didn't exactly stop Ray and Oscar from bawling their eyes out. Romeo just had to suck it up and wait for these two to chill. But he couldn't just stand there, so out of nowhere, he went and hugged Griffith. Then, he did the same thing to a totally shocked Kaix. Next up was a hug for the blubbering Oscar. He wished each of them well and told them to hit him up if anything went down. Romeo acting so out of character actually made Ralia stop crying. She flashed back to the first time she ever saw all the princes. Back then, Romeo had said he hated every single one of his so-called friends. Seeing those words now, they just seemed so ridiculous. The girl couldn't help but crack up. The princes were totally thrown by Ray's sudden mood swing from crying to laughing. They asked Ray if she was okay, and Ralia instantly went off and started wailing on Kaix. Kaix was clueless why the captain suddenly started hitting him specifically, and the captain didn't get it either. The girl glared at Kaix and told him he was a heartless idiot. Hearing that, Kaix suddenly felt like punching his leader in the face. Ray then said that sometimes he got mad at Kaix, but he never actually hated him. Ralia pointed out that because he was so open, he was the easiest to talk to. Then the heroine added that he absolutely had to be careful back home, especially with his uncle. To Griffith, the girl admitted that at first, she thought he was keeping his distance from them. She was just happy he always had their backs, and they'd only gotten this close because of him. She told him to watch out for anyone trying to exploit his power when he got home. Griffith reassured Ray, telling him he didn't need to worry about that. After that, the girl went to say goodbye to Oscar. She told the guy that the prince had really been working on himself for the past 3 years. Ralia pointed out that he was an amazing guy who hadn't given up and conquered his fears. A moment later, she added that no matter how far apart they were, they'd always have each other, as long as they had their dolls. Oscar, starting to cry again, promised he'd be careful and stay healthy. That was the best answer she could have hoped to hear from a close friend. Romeo was the last one left, but the girl didn't know what to say to him, or how. So, she straight up pointed at him and told him he needs to chill out and be more likable. Romeo was floored by that goodbye speech, coming from his best friend. Next thing you know, the kid gives the captain a light punch on the head. Ralia added that she was just spitting facts, and then gave the blonde a careful look. Romeo just stood there, bummed out, and his eyes started to well up. He hugged the leader and promised he'd try to do what she wanted. The girl hugged Romeo back and thanked him for saving her ass from the pond that day. The heroine didn't say it out loud, but she thought Romeo was a genuinely kind and brave dude. After that, the priestesses started hauling the boys' stuff into the carriages. And just like that, the moment arrived where each of them went their separate ways. Ralia watched each of the princes leave, then finally climbed into the carriage. She was super bummed, because she was the only one who knew what was coming for them. And what's worse, these were the last minutes she'd ever see them in her life. The thought that she'd never see them again as Prince Rio just hit her hard. But still, she'd cherish these 3 years forever as the best time in both her lives. Thanks to those 4, Ralia would never feel alone again, deep down. Each of them had become family to her, and nothing could ever change that. Even now, they'd all grown into handsome guys, worthy of being called heroes. She'd remember them exactly like this, young, full of energy, looking to the future with hope. Turning back, the girl thanked them for all 3 years spent at the temple. Carriages slowly started rolling out of the temple grounds. Every single prince was lost in thought about what was coming next. Kaix was stoked that Rio backed his play, even though everyone else was throwing shade. He'd announced he wanted to ditch being heir and become a merc, because his uncle was going to be a pain. Griffith thought his buddy's plan was totally insane. Romeo was also scratching his head, not getting why the guy would bounce from the royal family. Hearing him spill the beans, Rio immediately moved in closer to Kaix. He said it was a killer idea, and that he had total faith his friend would crush it. Ralia chimed in then, saying Kaix was destined to become one of the greatest mercs ever. Suddenly, Kaix remembered a dream he'd had the night before they left. This dream had wolves in it, and it showed stuff that happened to the kid during his first year at the temple. He lost an arm in the dream, but the weirdest part was, he couldn't find Ray anywhere. Kaix got the feeling the dream was showing how things would have played out if the captain hadn't gotten involved. This dream was bugging the hell out of him. He was trying to figure out what it meant. A little later, he got hit with a wave of sadness about how his aunt, uncle, and their kids would treat him back home. Chances are, his family's gonna try and kick him out. The guy looked at the mark and realized he wasn't scared of that happening anymore. And the reason he's not scared is because Rio believes in him and trusts him completely. He repeated the captain's line about being the best merc ever, and his mood instantly got better. Meanwhile, the guys escorting Ralia reported back to the Emperor that the kid was back in the tower where she started. The Emperor decided to keep the girl close. She might still be useful to him. He ordered his soldiers to post guards nearby to keep an eye on her. Ralia stared at the tower, where she'd spent almost her entire life. She knew this was where she'd be stuck, until the rebellion, and even after. But unlike the book's heroine, Ralia wasn't just going to take it. She was planning on getting out of this castle alive. Even though it was super early, Ralia decided to write the guys a letter. She wrote about the weather, that she'd already had breakfast, and that home was way more comfortable. The girl mentioned that home-cooked food was so much tastier and more varied. And the best part was, she didn't have to listen to their annoying chatter anymore. The heroine pulled her hair back. It was freezing in the unheated tower. The clothes she had on were doing jack squat to keep out the cold and the drafts. Ralia glanced at her suitcase and was just glad they hadn't swiped that too. So at least she still had some food she'd stashed from the temple, and some winter clothes from there as well. And one of her most prized possessions, her toy bunny. They hadn't taken either. She hugged it every day and thought about her friends back home. Plus, the toy had become the only thing she could even talk to in this dump. There was a fireplace in the tower, so she started wandering around outside, gathering up decent branches. Turns out, the skills she learned at the temple for starting fires in ovens came in super handy. Of course, back at the temple, they had tons of matches and candles, so they never had to actually make a fire. Every day that passed, she missed civilization and people more and more. The girl, who had been watching the spark grow, finally saw the branches catch fire. Suddenly, thick gray smoke billowed from the fireplace, which was seriously nasty. Looks like she accidentally grabbed some wet branches along with the dry ones. Now her eyes were burning from the smoke, but that was better than freezing to death. The girl decided she needed to gather as much wood as possible while the snow held off. Inside the tower, it was way colder than she originally thought, so she had to prepare for a hard freeze. At least the tower had running water, so that was a plus. She figured magic was used to heat the water, but she had no clue how that would help her. Originally, Ralia wanted to visit Elizabeth's secret cabin as soon as she got back, but she couldn't, because the Emperor had assigned guards to watch her. To play it safe and not piss off the Emperor, she decided to bide her time. By spring, the surveillance on her will be gone, and the real Rio will be poisoned by Radius's cronies. Real soon after that, the rebels, along with the ex-Emperor, will storm the Imperial Palace. That's when all hell breaks loose in the palace and around it. A total bloodbath. Until the Emperor changes, she's better off staying put in the tower. Emperor Perseus gives way less of a crap about her than his brother did, so she'll have more room to maneuver. The bummer is, after Rio kicks the bucket, the heroine won't be able to write letters to her friends anymore. She saw that her message was still unanswered, meaning everyone was still asleep. She waited a few more minutes and decided to get on with her daily routine. Judging by how fast the snow was coming down, she needed to start stocking up on firewood, like yesterday. The girl stepped out of the tower and headed down her usual path to gather firewood. It was getting colder outside with each passing day. In that moment, the heroine felt alone all over again. Lost in thought, she stopped watching where she was going and immediately tripped. The fall was short, but hitting cold, hard ground always hurts. She realized she'd scraped her hand, and the wound started to sting. The girl decided she needed to come up with a solid plan for the future. With the emperor changing, it was crucial to quickly find that shack with the food and magic artifacts. She hoped Elizabeth wouldn't be pissed if her daughter took her supplies. Just as important, she had to avoid Juliana and her brothers as much as possible. This girl was, not trying to become a book character and have to apologize a million times. And after all that prep, all she had to do was bail from the tower at the right moment. In the novel, Ralia died falling into a pond. But if that hadn't happened, she'd be married off to some nobody. Girl wasn't about to get stuck in a political marriage, so she had to escape before that went down. It started snowing again, and this time, it looked like it was here to stay. The girl knew she needed to get a move on with her winter preparations. Every day, Ralia went outside and gathered up branches. After that, she'd light the fireplace and dry her clothes that were soaked from the snow. Even with the fireplace, it was still freezing in that tower. Looking at the heavy snow outside, the girl was glad she'd already gathered so much firewood. She heard some noises and glanced over at the desk. The magic letter was glowing, which meant one of the guys finally wrote something. She rushed to read the reply. It felt like she'd been waiting forever. The letter said that Ray was a real badass. It was from Oscar, and he was stoked that the captain was doing okay. The kid wrote that he was doing good too, and the nightmares had stopped. Oscar figured the toy Ray gave him was what got rid of the nightmares. The next sentence was a shocker for her, and for anyone reading their messages. Oscar wrote that he was scared someone would find out about the toy. If that happened, the kid would be super embarrassed, so he hides it under his pillow. Kaix didn't jump into the chat, but he was happy to read his friend's messages. Griffith chimed in to remind everyone he was the one who had the cash on him that day. Romeo cut in, saying everyone seemed to be doing great, but he was the only one who was super annoyed. Romeo whined that he was bored out of his skull alone in the castle, and things were way more interesting back at the temple. Romeo finished the chat by asking what the other princes thought about taming that savage dragon. Ralia read through the messages and felt like the guys were exactly the same as always. That thought almost brought her to tears again. She gripped the letter tighter, trying to calm herself down. The girl decided she would definitely write a new letter tomorrow. After that, she pulled the blanket all the way over herself and went to sleep. None of the princes had a clue their captain was crying himself to sleep again last night. Time kept ticking. The snow was piling up like crazy, and we were running out of firewood. The guys were blowing up the message boards. They had a whole stack of letters going back and forth. Food was running low too, which was seriously freaking our girl out. One day, spring finally won out, and the snow started to melt, little by little. That was awesome news, because there were times when the wind and snow kept her completely trapped inside. That day, she was back to square one, wondering what the hell she should do next. She had all sorts of ideas buzzing around. She even thought about just going into hibernation for a while. While she was out looking for firewood, it hit her. She realized something important. She looked around to make sure nobody was watching her right then. This girl figured she absolutely had to take advantage of this situation. Meanwhile, back at the palace, someone was calling out to one of the maids. It was another maid, and she looked like she needed a hand. As the one girl walked by, she bumped into some dude right in front of the other maid. Realizing she was interrupting the guy's conversation with the maid, she apologized and booked it. Right then, the guy patted the maid on the shoulder and told her he was counting on her. After that, the maids went their separate ways to get their jobs done. The young girl decided that guy must be the other maid's secret boyfriend. But the maid didn't want to talk about him. And now she had a big mission on her plate. It had been months since our girl got back to the tower, and almost all the snow around there was gone. No more hunting for kindling, which means it'll be easier to find those leftover berries from last year. Ralia started going further than usual, but still couldn't find Elizabeth's cabin. When the storm hit, they stopped tracking the girl and forgot about her. Her servants had been killed years ago anyway, so this was Ralia's first winter completely alone, and springtime didn't give her much to cheer about. Because it meant Rayo's death was coming soon, and her pen pal days were over. Letters from the boys were the only thing that made her happy. She was always waiting for her friends to reply, and now she realized it was like being addicted to social media. Even from thousands of miles away, those guys gave her strength. She started thinking about how much time Prince Rio had left before he died. Suddenly, she heard excited voices nearby. The knights were saying that the woman His Majesty trusted did something awful. Ralia overheard the emperor threw her in jail, and that the prince's food was poisoned. That day came way sooner than she expected. Ralia was stunned, like lightning hit her. Shaking it off, she ducked down and started thinking fast. She replayed the words about the prince and the poison, hoping it wasn't what she thought. But it all added up, which meant Crown Prince Rio was already dead. The girl bolted towards the tower as fast as she could. She needed to hide all the letters, quick and somewhere safe. Looking at the pages, she wondered if there was any way to get the truth to them. She froze at the desk, trying to decide whether to write her friends. She knew she was the one messaging them and wanted the princes to figure it out, but the spell was blocking her. Even through letters, the heroine couldn't reveal the truth about who she really was. If she wrote that Ralia was actually Rio, she'd break the spell's rules, so any hint would lead to instant death, meaning she had to keep her mouth shut. Stumped, she looked out the window and saw someone who definitely shouldn't have shown up so early. But it was him, all right, and he was coming fast. He marched ahead of his army, barking orders as he reached the castle. The soldiers followed their commander, aiming to overthrow the current emperor. It was the deposed Ridius Perseus, and he'd come to reclaim his throne. The girl overheard the army telling the locals not to panic, that they were there to restore the throne to the rightful Emperor Perseus. This meant the soldiers would be reaching the girl's tower any minute now. Because of the Emperor's magic restrictions, she couldn't tell the soldiers the truth. The girl decided she could at least leave a clue. She hoped Romeo or Griffith would figure out what she was trying to tell them. On a blank sheet of paper, the girl wrote her name, Ralia or Ralia. After that, she knew it was time to say goodbye. She pulled out the magic stone so no more letters would appear. The girl put all the letters and the magic pen into a box. She hid them under the wooden floorboards near the closet. Then, the girl climbed into the closet and started waiting for the invasion to end. She was trying to calm herself down, trying to think like an adult. But the fact was, she was still stuck in a 10-year-old's body. Ralia was terrified of everything that was going on outside, and seriously bummed she didn't have any powers. The main character hid in the closet, scared stiff, until the sounds of battle finally died down. 2 days later, the fighting was finally over. Suddenly, one of the Emperor's soldiers yanked open the closet door. Meanwhile, palace servants were already spreading the news like wildfire. The usurper, Ridios Auraria, had been defeated by Emperor Perseus. The guy asked the girl her name, and if she was really Princess Iris's daughter, adding that the Emperor wanted to see her. Iris Auraria was Ridios and Perseus's younger sister, and the Empire's only princess. She was the top lady in the Empire until Perseus married Elizabeth. Losing her status made Iris despise Elizabeth, and she started tormenting her. Her anger exploded when the queen gave the Emperor twin boys. But then Iris met a guy she actually fell in love with. He was just a knight, and he died young. But Iris got pregnant before he did. On the day Iris was due, Elizabeth went into premature labor too. Perseus was away on a mission, and the Emperor died, which played right into his younger brother's hands. Realizing that Ridius orchestrated the Emperor's death and her husband's absence, Elizabeth dismissed all the servants and gave birth alone. She had a daughter, and she had to save her life, no matter what. Immediately after giving birth, Elizabeth went to her brother's sister's chambers. She knew Ridius would never let Perseus's kid live. Elizabeth couldn't trust anyone, but she knew Iris was giving birth today too, becoming a mother. She was hoping to give the baby to Iris, but when she walked in, she realized tragedy had struck. Iris was sitting on the bed, and you could see the despair written all over her face. The Emperor's sister's newborn child was dead. Iris figured Elizabeth had come to gloat. Elizabeth felt bad for the girl who'd lost both her husband and her child, but she couldn't just leave. Swallowing her pride, Elizabeth knelt down and started begging the girl for help. She showed the princess her baby and asked her to take it as her own. Elizabeth added that Ridios would kill her, and this child soon. So she pleaded with the princess to take the girl so she could survive. Those words only brought a bitter smirk to Iris's face. She had no intention of helping the woman who'd ruined her life. The princess was a mess, totally sobbing, thinking Elizabeth didn't get what was going down. Iris just snapped, yelling that she didn't give a damn about her or her freaking kid. The maid was trying to chill her out, but she was already screaming that the baby was better off dead, right then and there. The screaming woke the baby, and the little girl looked at the yelling woman, making these weird baby noises. That instantly cooled Iris down, and she started bawling again. The girl was torn between wanting to off the kid and just scoop her up and hold her. The baby was wide awake now and started screaming her head off. In a raspy voice, Iris told Elizabeth to just leave the kid there. Elizabeth quietly and super sincerely thanked the princess. The maid handed Elizabeth the dead boy, Iris, and begged her to take care of him. Elizabeth promised to do whatever she could for the kid. After that, Elizabeth got up and slowly walked out of Iris's room. She held the infant close, but he was ice cold. Elizabeth apologized to the boy for separating him from his mom. Meanwhile, back in her own chambers, the princess finally chilled out, hugging her baby, feeling his warmth. The image of her dead lover flashed before the girl's eyes. She noticed the baby girl's eyes were exactly like her man's. Iris instantly loved that child like her own. The handmaid was worried sick about her mistress and just wanted to help somehow. She asked Iris what else she could do, but saw the girl wasn't even reacting. After a few moments, it became clear the princess had fallen into a deep sleep. From that point on, events spiraled. Perseus died on an expedition with the twins, Elizabeth was poisoned, and Ridius took the throne. Iris's condition worsened daily. Losing her own child really broke her. Shortly before her death, Iris fully confided in the maid, who knew the truth about the baby swap. The maid, following Iris's orders, cared for the child, never telling anyone the truth. Then, years later, one day the maid suddenly vanished. Along with the maid, Princess Iris's jewelry disappeared. The word is, the maid's parents were kidnapped and declared heretics, and the princess's jewels were supposed to save them. Ultimately, no one ever learned the truth about Ralia. And now, a servant brought her to the emperor as his sister's daughter. The emperor was alone in his study, hunched over his desk, filling out some paperwork. Spotting the girl, he asked if she was really Iris's daughter. The emperor noticed Ralia's eyes. They were exactly like his dead wife's. Perseus was taken aback by this, but he acted like he didn't see the resemblance. The emperor didn't know Ralia was his daughter, and according to the story, he was supposed to be nursing a broken heart. It was a wound caused by the death of his wife and their stillborn child. Even killing his own brother didn't bring him peace. It just added to the pain. According to the plot, all his suffering was meant to help the main character. Perseus's whole tragedy was so Juliana could heal him. The emperor and Ralia stared at each other in silence for a few minutes. Ralia figured she only existed in the story for one reason. She was just there to highlight how much love Julian, the emperor, got from his family. The main character was destined to be the one who'd bring peace to almost everyone in the novel. Meanwhile, Ralia's character only ever caused Perseus more pain. She wanted to spill the truth, but it wouldn't change the book's plot and would just get her killed instantly. The emperor took another long, hard look at her. He felt this overwhelming wave of sadness, so he told a servant to get her out of there, ASAP. The servant, without warning, yanked her roughly by the shoulder. She glared at the guy and told him she could walk on her own. In that instant, fear gripped her, because she'd just realized something else. Everyone in this castle is against her now. The soldiers and the servants all thought she wasn't good enough to be here. Nobody said it to her face, but you could tell just by looking at them. She felt that loneliness again, and she was so damn tired. Left alone, the emperor finally let his emotions out. Perseus will find out the truth about Ralia one day, but it'll be too late. The maid who knew the truth about the girl's birth will come back to the palace, but Ralia will already be dead. Even if she could somehow tell the truth, it wouldn't matter. They just think she was crazy. It was stupid to think the emperor would believe her just because they shared blood. The heroine knew it, even back when she was stuck in that hospital bed. Barely recovered from the servant's attitude, she was already facing something way more dangerous. Twin brothers were walking towards her. They'd also come back to the palace with the emperor. They got closer and grilled her, asking if she really was Ralia Auraria. The guys knew Iris Auraria had constantly tormented their mother. From the second they saw her, they hated the main character for who her mom was. The girl looked at the twins, Cedric and Damien, terrified. You could feel their hatred radiating off them. She decided to stay quiet, not wanting to provoke even more hate from her older half-brothers. Cedric spat out that she was just as shameless as her mother. The other brother added that their younger brother and mother had died because of her mother's actions. They couldn't believe that after everything Iris did, her daughter still had the nerve to be alive. They started yelling at the girl, calling her the daughter of murderers. The girl didn't respond, which only pissed the princes off even more. Then Juliana cut them off. Looked like she was surprised her brothers were doing something without her. That's when the main character saw what the novel's female lead actually looked like for the first time. She really was gorgeous, and effortlessly drew everyone's attention. Even Ralia thought the girl looked like a real angel. The brothers didn't want to hash things out in front of their little sister. They turned to Juliana and said they were waiting for her, so they could all go play together. They flipped a switch instantly, and you couldn't even tell they were dangerous brothers a second ago, but they still felt Ralia staring at them, and they didn't like it one bit. Before leaving, one of the brothers straight up called the girl disgusting. After that, the kids took off, yakking about what they were gonna do today. Finally, Ralia was able to reach the tower after all that crap. She picked up the rabbit and wondered how her friends would have reacted if they'd seen her go at it with those two. They probably would have gotten pissed and jumped to defend her. And they definitely would have thrown in something about how nobody talks to their captain like that. Suddenly, the girl needed to text them, needed to hear their voices. More than ever, she felt like she couldn't stand being there any longer. The main character decided she seriously needed to pull herself together, so she slapped herself as hard as she could. It hurt so bad, tears came to her eyes. At least it helped her get her act together. She told herself that no one else could save her. She wasn't about to stay a defenseless kid like Ralia was supposed to be in the story. The girl was almost out of food, and there was no way she was getting fed in the palace. But there was a silver lining. Now she wouldn't be watched so closely, which meant it was the perfect time to go looking for Elizabeth's cabin. One day, luck was on her side, and she actually found the place. The door wasn't locked, so Ralia carefully pushed it open. The house was spotless. It felt like someone was still taking care of it. Everything in the place was in amazing condition. She started thinking about how she was now in a place her mother used to visit all the time. If Elizabeth had lived, her life would be totally different right now. The book says Elizabeth was a beautiful person with a good heart. She definitely would have tried to protect her daughter from all enemies, even if it cost her life. Either way, we gotta find the supplies and magical items ASAP and get out of this cabin. Turns out, finding the food was easy. They were under the floorboards, neatly stacked in a big crate. To keep the food from spoiling, Elizabeth invented her own preservation magic. The jars looked empty, but the first one was labeled bread, so I guess the food reappears when you open it. In the book, Juliana was supposed to find these supplies, but she didn't give a damn about the plot. She just wanted to survive. The girl thought about the artifacts, but those were hidden way better. Ralia knew mana affinity was usually inherited, so she was banking on the artifact's power. The girl decided not to risk it, and not to hang around the shack too long. She made up her mind to come back another time and search for the artifacts. On her way, she overheard someone talking, so she stopped dead in her tracks. A maid was trying to cheer up a crying Juliana, suggesting a walk to buy a new dress. The heroine remembered the book's plot well, and this conversation was happening way too early for her. Meanwhile, the maid suggested Juliana visit her brothers, who were just finishing their fencing practice. The maid thought the emperor was too harsh on the girl, not letting her touch him. Juliana immediately replied that her dad was good and just not used to her yet. Now, the heroine was totally sure she understood what event was going down. There's this one part in the book where the emperor pushes Juliana away. The poor kid got totally freaked out and super upset. After that, to make up for it, Perseus bought her a doll. And it was right after that incident that people started gossiping about Relia's future, so she had to ditch the palace ASAP. Around the same time, Carius had been getting called by the twins for like 2 minutes. The guy was so lost in his head, he totally spaced on where he even was. The boys got bummed, because their uncle wasn't even watching them show off their fencing skills. Their uncle calmed them down, saying they both had a knack for it, and nobody else around was better. Then, he immediately added that they couldn't slack off, and needed to keep training. That way, they'd become swordsmen, who would leave their mark on history. The brothers wanted Uncle to give them a fencing lesson tomorrow, but Carius was already booked. Carius was planning on dropping by the imperial palace. The maids were surprised to see a man from the Superior ducal family. Carius was the younger brother of the late Princess Elizabeth. Feeling the curious stares, the young man gave a bow. After that, he turned around and silently walked off the palace grounds. They say his sister's little brother was so traumatized by her death that he couldn't speak for a long time. It took a long time for the young man to recover and be able to come to the imperial palace. Maybe he came back to see the twin princes. Carius, though, was thinking that if Perseus had another son, the prince's legacy would be threatened. At this rate, the Superior family could become his enemy. Without even realizing it, the guy ended up at Elizabeth's secret shack. He remembered how his little sister used to spend time here, lost in her magical research. The pain of losing his sister hit him again. Carius missed her like crazy. Taking a closer look at the shack, the young man noticed the door wasn't shut tight. He decided to check out who was inside and what they were doing there. The guy threw the door open and saw why it wasn't locked. He totally wasn't expecting to see anyone here, especially not a kid. The girl was sitting at the table, and it looked like she was frozen solid. A sharp voice demanding, "Who are you?" made the girl turn around. You could see the fear in her eyes. She was totally lost. The guy was caught off guard and just froze for a few seconds. She never expected anyone to show up at the cabin today. She was shaking like a leaf, totally panicked and speechless. The guy saw she was scared, even though he didn't know why. Carius figured she was a maid from the palace, here to clean the shack. When she didn't answer, the prince figured she was hiding something. That's when Carius asked her what her name was. That question was just as hard to answer as the last one. The dude waited for an answer, but got nothing. This girl's totally zoned out, but the fear in her eyes is still there. It's only now that the guy actually notices the girl's eyes. Her eyes were exactly like his dead sister's. The guy tried to calm himself down, thinking that comparison was total crap. He noticed the girl's silver hair, marking her as part of the Auraria family. Carius asked the girl if he understood correctly that she was Princess Iris's daughter. The guy decided that the daughter of the woman who tormented his sister had no right to be there. He called the girl a rat and demanded she get out of the shack immediately. The man's yelling sent Ralia spiraling into another wave of fear. With the last of her strength, she got to her feet, shaking violently. The girl bolted from the shack, too scared to even look at her mom's brother. She ran like hell, just wanting to get away from the hate in that guy's eyes. Left alone, Carius knew he shouldn't have yelled at the kid, but he still did the right thing. Compared to his sister's constant suffering, a couple of harsh words are nothing. Still, deep down, the guy felt bad about what he did. especially because of how the girl looked. Iris's daughter was so skinny and worn out, there wasn't a trace of imperial dignity left in her. Carius was surprised by this. After all, no matter what, she was still a princess's daughter. He started thinking about how low someone from a formerly ruling family could fall. Now the prince was pissed at himself for even starting to worry about some random kid. The important thing is that his nephews don't end up the same way. He'll do anything to make sure the brothers are the emperor's direct heirs, and he doesn't give a damn about the girl. The girl made it to the tower and slammed the door shut behind her. She dove under the covers and tried to calm herself down. Even hugging the rabbit, Ralia couldn't stop shaking. The heroine knew she wasn't in any immediate danger, but she still couldn't relax. She looked at the toy rabbit and thought that at least no one could take him away from her. She bought the Oscar doll so he could get rid of his fits. But she's the one who ends up relying on this rabbit the most. The girl finally crawled out from under the blanket and decided to think through everything that happened today. She remembered that during the conversation, that guy called Elizabeth his sister. The heroine remembered that Elizabeth had several close relatives. Elizabeth came from the Superior family, respected aristocrats who defended the empire's northwestern borders. Looks like the guy came to the capital to visit his nephews. Ralia wondered if this man could help her if he knew the whole truth. Come to think of it, he was technically her uncle, so he could take her from the tower as Elizabeth's daughter. But most likely, the dude wouldn't believe a word she said. After all, even her own father didn't realize she was his daughter. Fear started creeping in again as she heard the sound of footsteps. About a minute later, the door to her room was kicked wide open. It wasn't Elizabeth's brother, but the man she feared the most. The guy didn't even hesitate, asking her right away how she knew about Elizabeth's cabin. The emperor was seriously pissed. He figured Iris, his sister, must have spilled the beans to the heroine about this place. Perseus wanted an answer to his question, and he wanted it right freaking now.